The wedding vow that sealed her fate wasn't "I do." It was the moment Lucien Varese looked into Alara Quinn's eyes and said, "You are nothing to me." 3 signatures. 1 desperate father, and a marriage contract that turned her into collateral for debts she never owed. Tonight, she'll walk into a mansion where loyalty is bought in blood and trust is the first casualty. In a world where power is the only currency and love is the ultimate weakness, Alara just became the Mafia King's most dangerous possession. Like this story? Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Mom. The knock came at 9:47 p.m. Alara Quinn would remember that detail forever, the exact moment her life fractured into before and after. She'd been washing dishes in their cramped kitchen, her father dozing in his worn armchair, the television murmuring about weather patterns and traffic updates. Normal. Safe. The kind of evening that felt eternal in its mundane predictability. Then 3 heavy thuds against their apartment door shattered everything. Her father's eyes snapped open, and Alara saw something she'd never seen before. Raw, primal fear. "Dad?" She dried her hands on a threadbare towel, her stomach already knotting. "Who?" "Don't answer it." His voice cracked. He pushed himself up, his hands trembling as they gripped the armrests. "Alara, listen to me. Go to your room. Lock the door. Don't come out no matter what you hear." The knocking came again, harder, more insistent. "Mr. Quinn." The voice from the other side was smooth, almost polite. "We know you're home. Open the door, or we'll open it for you." Alara's father crossed the small living room in 3 strides and gripped her shoulders. His fingers dug in too tight, desperate. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I thought I had more time. I thought—" The door exploded inward. 2 men entered first, massive, expressionless, moving with the practiced efficiency of soldiers. They wore expensive suits that did nothing to conceal the violence coiled in their frames. Behind them came a 3rd man, older, silver-haired, carrying a leather portfolio like a businessman arriving for a merger. "Patrick Quinn." The silver-haired man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You've been avoiding our calls." Alara's father stepped in front of her instinctively. "I told Vincent I needed another month. I'm working on it. I just need another month." The man's smile widened. "You've had 6 months, Patrick. 6 months of extensions, of promises, of excuses. Mr. Varese's patience has limits." Varese? The name hit Alara like cold water. Even sheltered as she was, even in her carefully constructed bubble of community college classes and coffee shop shifts, she knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. The Varese family didn't just operate in the shadows, they owned them. "How much?" Alara heard herself ask. Her voice sounded strange, distant, like someone else was speaking through her. "How much does he owe?" 3 sets of eyes turned to her. The silver-haired man's gaze traveled from her face to her worn jeans to her bare feet, assessing, calculating. "Alara, no," her father started. $273,000, the man said, plus interest, compounded weekly for the past 6 months. He paused. "The total now stands at $342,000. The number was incomprehensible. Impossible. Alara looked at her father, searching his face for denial, for explanation, for anything that would make this make sense. His expression told her everything. "I was going to win it back," he said hoarsely. "The poker game. It was supposed to be easy money. I had a system. I was so sure—" "Dad?" Her voice cracked. $300,000 on a poker game? "Several poker games," the silver-haired man corrected pleasantly. "Mr. Varese runs a very accommodating establishment. He extended credit. Your father accepted. Debts were incurred." He set the portfolio on their coffee table, the leather gleaming obscenely against the stained surface. "Now debts must be paid." One of the large men moved to the window, his bulk blocking the meager streetlight. The other positioned himself by the broken door. Not threatening, just present, just reminding them that leaving wasn't an option. "I can get the money," Patrick said desperately. "I can sell the car, I can take a second mortgage." "You don't own a car. This apartment is rented, and your credit score—" The man made a dismissive gesture. "Mr. Varese doesn't deal in fantasies, Patrick. He deals in reality. And the reality is you have no assets, no collateral, and no means of repayment." Silence fell like a guillotine blade. "However," The silver-haired man opened the portfolio. Mr. Varese is not without mercy. He's prepared to offer an alternative arrangement. Alara's father sagged with relief. Anything. I'll do anything. Not you. The man's eyes shifted to Alara. Her. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. No. Patrick moved in front of his daughter again. Absolutely not. Whatever you're thinking, Mr. Varese requires a wife. The words hung in the air, absurd and terrible. Alara laughed, a short, sharp sound of disbelief. You're insane. His previous engagement was dissolved under unfortunate circumstances, the man continued, as if she hadn't spoken. He finds himself in need of a spouse for certain business arrangements. Your daughter is of appropriate age, unmarried, and he consulted a document from the portfolio. Has no criminal record. She'll do. She's 23 years old. Patrick's voice rose to a shout. She has her whole life ahead of her. I won't let you. Then you'll die tonight. The words were spoken with such casual certainty that for a moment no one reacted. Then one of the large men shifted his jacket, revealing a holstered weapon. Mr. Varese gave explicit instructions, the silver-haired man said. Return with payment, a payment plan, or a solution. Your daughter solves the problem. Everyone walks away alive. He turned to Alara. It's quite generous, actually. One signature and your father's debt is forgiven. You'll want for nothing. The Varese estate is worth hundreds of millions. You'll live in luxury most women only dream of. As a prisoner, Alara said. Her hands had started trembling, but her voice held steady. You're describing a prison. I'm describing marriage. The man's smile returned. Many women find the distinction negligible. Get out! Patrick's voice shook with rage. Get out of my home! We're not... The sound of a gun cocking stopped him mid-sentence. The man by the window hadn't drawn his weapon. He didn't need to. The implication was crystal clear. This conversation had one of two endings, agreement or violence. Alara looked at her father, really looked at him. At the gray threading his hair, the lines carved deep around his eyes from worry and regret. At the tremor in his hands that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with the consequences of his choices finally arriving at their door. She thought about her mother, dead 5 years from cancer they couldn't afford to treat properly. About the medical bills that had started her father's spiral into desperation. About the series of bad decisions that had led them here. To this moment. To this impossible choice. If I say yes, she heard herself say, the debt is gone? Completely? Alara, no, completely, the silver-haired man confirmed. Forgiven in its entirety the moment you sign the marriage certificate. And my father is safe. No retaliation, no punishment? You have my word. Mr. Varese's word. Patrick grabbed her arm. You can't do this. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for my mistakes. It's not a sacrifice if it's a choice. She pulled free gently, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. And it's my choice. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. Tears streamed down his face. These people, they're not like us. The things they do, the world they live in, I understand that if I don't agree, they'll kill you right here in front of me. Her voice broke on the last word, but she didn't look away from the silver-haired man. When? Tonight. Tonight? Patrick's voice rose to a wail. You can't expect her to just... Mr. Varese is currently at his estate. The wedding will take place there within the hour. All arrangements have been made. The man gestured to one of his companions, who produced a garment bag from seemingly nowhere. A dress and appropriate accessories. You have 10 minutes to change and say your goodbyes. Alara took the bag with numb fingers. The fabric inside was silk. She could feel it through the plastic. Expensive, chosen by strangers for a wedding to a man she'd never met. Can I at least see a photo of him? She asked. Know what he looks like? The silver-haired man pulled out his phone, swiped twice, and turned it toward her. The man on the screen was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, eyes so dark they looked black in the photograph. Handsome in a way that seemed almost aggressive, like beauty weaponized into something dangerous. He wasn't smiling. Lucien Varese, the man said, your husband-to-be. Alara stared at the face of her future, trying to find something human in those cold eyes, some hint of the man beneath the monster. She found nothing. 10 minutes, the man reminded her. She turned and walked to her bedroom on legs that didn't feel like her own. Behind her, she heard her father start to sob, deep, wrenching sounds that tore through her chest. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. In her room, small, cluttered with textbooks and dreams of a future that no longer existed, she laid out the dress. White silk, simple and elegant, with a neckline that wouldn't have been out of place at a normal wedding, shoes that actually fit, a delicate veil. Someone had taken her measurements. Someone had planned this. How long had they been watching her? How long had they known this moment would come? She changed mechanically, her fingers clumsy on the zipper. The dress fit perfectly, skimming her curves without being ostentatious. The kind of dress a real bride might choose. The kind of dress that represented love and future and hope. On her, it felt like a shroud. A soft knock on her door. 2 minutes. Alara looked at herself in the mirror. A stranger stared back. White dress. Pale face. Eyes too wide, filled with something that looked like shock but felt like drowning. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered to her reflection. "I'm so sorry." Then she opened the door and walked toward her wedding. The drive to the Varese estate took 40 minutes through parts of the city Alara had never seen. They left behind the cramped neighborhoods and struggling businesses, climbing into hills where houses became mansions, and mansions became estates hidden behind walls and gates. The silver-haired man, he'd introduced himself as Vincent, though she suspected that wasn't his real name, maintained a stream of polite conversation that felt like sandpaper against her nerves. "Mister, Varese values punctuality. He values loyalty above all else. He has certain expectations that will be explained to you." A pause. "He can be a difficult man, but he's fair. Follow the rules and you'll find life quite comfortable." Alara didn't respond. What was there to say? The car passed through 3 separate security checkpoints before the main house came into view. Estate didn't do it justice. It was a fortress disguised as a mansion. Stone and glass and money rising against the night sky like something out of a fairy tale. The kind of place where beautiful princes locked away in towers actually existed. Except the monster and the prisoner were the same person here. And she was marrying him. They pulled up to a side entrance. Not the grand front doors. This wasn't that kind of wedding. Vincent led her through hallways that smelled of old money and older secrets, marble floors, oil paintings of men with hard eyes, silence so complete it felt like pressure against her eardrums. Finally, a set of double doors. Dark wood, ornately carved. Vincent knocked twice and opened them without waiting for a response. The room beyond was some kind of study or office. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that could have doubled as a dining table, leather furniture that probably cost more than her father's annual salary. Everything dark wood and shadows. And standing by the window, backlit by the city lights, was Lucien Varese. He was taller than she'd expected, broader through the shoulders. The photograph had captured his face but missed the presence, the way he commanded space without moving, the sense that everything around him existed only by his permission. He wore a black suit, no tie. Top button of his shirt undone, business casual for a Mafia kingpin. He didn't turn when they entered. "Mr. Varese," Vincent said, "your bride." "Leave us." His voice was deep, cultured, with an edge that suggested violence was always one word away. Vincent departed immediately, the doors closing with a soft click that sounded like a cell locking. Alara stood in the center of the room, her heart pounding, waiting for him to acknowledge her presence. He didn't. The silence stretched. 30 seconds. A minute. Long enough that her shock started curdling into anger. "You could at least look at me," she finally said. He turned. The photograph hadn't lied, he was striking, but it had missed the coldness, the way his eyes moved over her with all the warmth of a man appraising livestock. Taking inventory, calculating value. "You'll do," he said eventually. 3 words, dismissive, final. "Glad I meet your standards," Alara shot back, her temper flaring past her fear. "Since you're forcing me to marry you to pay off a debt I didn't incur." One dark eyebrow lifted. "You're angry." "I'm furious." "Good." He moved away from the window, crossing to a bar cart and pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid. Anger is honest. I have no use for tears or manipulation. He held out one glass. She didn't take it. I don't drink. You do now. He pressed the glass into her hand. The ceremony begins in 5 minutes. We both need to get through it. This isn't a real wedding. She looked down at the liquid, resisting the urge to throw it in his face. You're buying a person. I'm being sold. There's nothing sacred about this. Sacred? He almost smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made her skin crawl. What a quaint notion. No, Alara. I may call you Alara? He didn't wait for permission. This isn't sacred. It's a transaction. I require a wife for certain business and legal purposes. Your father required debt forgiveness. We each get what we need. You need a wife? Can't buy one the normal way? The normal way involves emotions I don't possess and complications I won't tolerate. He drank his whiskey in one smooth motion. This arrangement is cleaner. For you. For both of us. You'll live here. You'll have access to everything money can buy. In exchange, you'll fulfill certain social obligations, attend events, maintain appearances, play the role of Mrs. Varese when required. He set down his glass. What happens behind these walls stays behind these walls. Follow the rules, and we'll coexist peacefully. And if I don't follow the rules, his eyes met hers, truly met them for the first time. She saw something flicker in those dark depths. Not anger, something colder. Then you'll learn why people fear the Varese name. A knock at the door interrupted whatever she might have said to that. It's time, Mr. Varese. Lucian buttoned his jacket with precise movements. The ceremony will take 3 minutes. An officiant, 2 witnesses, legally binding in every way that matters. Any questions? Alara had 1,000 questions. She asked the only one that mattered. What if I refuse? What if I run right now? He studied her for a long moment. Then your father will be dead before you reach the front gate, and you'll live with that knowledge for the rest of your considerably shortened life. He moved toward the door, pausing beside her. But you won't run. I can see it in your eyes. You're a martyr, not a coward. You'll go through with this to save him. He was right, and she hated him for it. After you, Mrs. Varese. The ceremony took place in a small chapel on the grounds. Not the study. Apparently even Lucien Varese drew the line at getting married in his office. The space was beautiful in an austere way. Stone walls, stained glass windows dark with night, candles providing the only light. An officiant in simple robes waited at the altar, his face carefully neutral. 2 witnesses stood in the shadows, Vincent and another man Alara didn't recognize. No music, no flowers, no family. Just a bride in a white dress and a groom who looked like he was presiding over a hostile merger. They stood before the altar. The officiant began speaking, words about unity and commitment that rang hollow in the cavernous space. Alara barely heard them. She was too focused on her own heartbeat, on the feeling of the floor beneath her feet, on the surreal horror of what was happening. Do you, Lucien Alexander Varese, take this woman? I do. Flat, emotionless, like signing a contract. And do you, Alara Marie Quinn? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Lucien's hand found hers, his fingers cold, his grip firm. Not comforting, controlling. Alara, he said quietly, say the words. This was it, her last chance to refuse, to run, to choose chaos over captivity. She thought of her father, of the gun pressed against his head, of the choice that wasn't really a choice at all. I do. Her voice sounded very small in the vast space. The officiant produced rings, white gold, elegant, probably worth more than every possession she'd ever owned combined. Lucien slid one onto her finger with practiced efficiency. She did the same for him, her hand shaking so badly she nearly dropped the band. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. No kiss. Lucien stepped back immediately, putting space between them. Sign here. Vincent appeared with documents. The marriage certificate, thick with legal jargon. Lucien signed first. His signature a brutal slash of black ink. Then he handed the pen to Alara. She stared at the line where her name should go. This was it, the moment of no return. 3 signatures, she thought, remembering the hook that had started all of this. 3 signatures and her life was no longer her own. She signed. Vincent produced more documents. The debt forgiveness agreement contingent upon the marriage. More signatures, more ink, more pieces of herself signed away. When it was done, Vincent smiled. Congratulations, Mrs. Verres. The title felt like a brand. Lucienne took her elbow, not gently, and guided her out of the chapel. The night air hit her face, cool and sharp, and for a moment she thought she might be sick. Take her to the East Wing, Lucienne told someone. Another staff member materialized from the shadows. Show her to her rooms. My rooms. Elara turned to him. Not our rooms? I have my space. You have yours. His expression was unreadable. This is a marriage of convenience, Elara. Don't confuse it with romance. Where are you going? To work. I have business that doesn't stop for weddings. He was already walking away, his phone out, his attention already elsewhere. Wait. She started after him, but a hand on her arm stopped her. The staff member, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a firm grip. Let him go, dear. Come with me. Let's get you settled. Elara wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to run after her new husband and demand answers, demand humanity, demand something other than this cold dismissal. But she was so tired, bone tired, soul tired. So she followed the woman into the labyrinth of her new prison. The East Wing was a separate world. Her rooms turned out to be a full apartment, bedroom, bathroom, sitting room, walk-in closet, already filled with clothes in her size. Everything decorated in soft grays and whites, expensive and impersonal. A beautiful cage. I'm Mrs. Chen, the woman said, bustling around opening curtains and adjusting lamps. I've been with the Verres family for 20 years. I'll be looking after you, seeing to your needs. Does he do this often? Elara sank onto the bed, king-sized, covered in silk sheets. Force women into marriage? Mrs. Chen's hand stilled on the curtain. You're the first, actually. Lucky me. Mr. Verres is... Mrs. Chen chose her words carefully. Complex. He's not cruel for cruelty's sake, but he's not warm either. He expects obedience and discretion. And if he doesn't get it, then you learn very quickly why those expectations exist. She turned, her expression sympathetic. My advice? Learn the rules. Follow them. Make this easier on yourself. What are the rules? Don't leave the estate without permission. Don't enter Mr. Verres's private wing uninvited. Don't ask questions about his business. Don't speak to outsiders about this arrangement. She ticked them off like a grocery list. Appear at meals when requested. Attend events when required. And above all, don't betray him. Betray him how? Mrs. Chen's eyes darkened. In any way. He values loyalty above all else. Cross him, and... She didn't finish. Didn't need to. After Mrs. Chen left, Elara stood in the center of her gilded cage and tried to process everything. 12 hours ago, she'd been washing dishes in her father's apartment. Now she was Mrs. Lucienne Verres, wife of a Mafia kingpin, trapped in a mansion worth more than she could comprehend. She wanted to cry, to scream, to break things. Instead, she walked to the window. The estate sprawled beneath her. Manicured lawns, security lights, walls topped with cameras, and God knew what else. Beautiful. Impenetrable. Somewhere in this fortress was her husband, the man who'd looked at her like she was an inconvenient acquisition, the man who'd spoken vows with all the emotion of someone ordering coffee, the man who now owned her. Elara pressed her forehead against the cool glass and finally let herself acknowledge the truth she'd been avoiding all night. She was terrified. Not of Lucien specifically, though his coldness was frightening in its own right. She was terrified of disappearing, of becoming just another possession in his collection, of losing herself so completely in this role that one day she'd look in the mirror and not recognize the woman staring back. I'm still me, she whispered to her reflection. No matter what happens, I'm still me. But even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. Well, she didn't sleep. How could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lucien's face, heard his voice. You are nothing to me. At 3 a.m., she gave up and explored her new prison. The sitting room had books, leather-bound classics she'd never had time to read. The closet held designer clothes with tags still attached. The bathroom had products she'd only seen in magazine advertisements. Everything she could want, nothing she needed. She was examining a ridiculously expensive face cream when she heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Heavy, purposeful. Lucian. She froze, holding her breath, waiting for him to knock, to enter, to demand something. The footsteps passed her door without slowing. Relief and something else, something that felt uncomfortably like disappointment, washed through her. What did you expect, she asked herself? That he'd come apologize, explain himself? This isn't a romance. It's a business transaction. But knowing that didn't stop the ache in her chest. Dawn came slowly, gray light filtering through expensive curtains. Alara hadn't moved from the window seat, watching the estate wake up. Gardeners appeared to tend the grounds. Security changed shifts. Somewhere, coffee was being made, breakfast prepared. Normal routines in an abnormal life. A knock at her door at 7 a.m. sharp. Mrs. Verez? Mrs. Chen's voice. Breakfast is in 30 minutes, Mr. Verezi requests your presence. Requests. As if she had a choice. Alara dressed carefully, choosing from the wardrobe that wasn't hers, a simple navy dress that covered enough to feel armor-like. She twisted her hair up, applied minimal makeup, stared at the wedding ring on her finger. 24 hours ago, this ring didn't exist. Now it was permanent. The dining room was on the main floor, another cavernous space dominated by a table that could seat 20. Lucien sat at the head reading a newspaper, coffee steaming beside him. He didn't look up when she entered. Sit. Not a greeting, a command. She sat 3 chairs down from him, far enough to make a point. His eyes flicked to her over the paper. Closer. Why? We're the only ones here. Closer. It wasn't a request. Alara moved to the chair immediately to his right, her jaw tight. Good. He went back to his paper. You learn quickly. Udi's staff materialized with breakfast. More food than 2 people could possibly eat. Eggs, toast, fruit, pastries. Alara's stomach churned looking at it. Eat. Lucian turned a page. Mrs. Chen tells me you didn't sleep. How would she know that? Because I pay her to know everything about this household. He set down the paper, finally looking at her directly. You'll eat. You'll maintain your health. I won't have you making yourself sick. Concerned for my welfare? Concerned that you represent me now. You'll look the part. He gestured to her plate. Eat. It was easier to comply than fight. Alara forced down toast she couldn't taste, watching him from the corner of her eye. In daylight, he looked slightly less intimidating. Still dangerous. That was bred in the bone, but human. There were faint shadows under his eyes, suggesting he hadn't slept well either. A small scar above his left eyebrow. Details the photograph had missed. You'll have a fitting today, he said abruptly. Wardrobe needs to assess what's missing from your closet. I have more clothes than I've ever owned in my life. You have basics. You'll need formal wear. We have an event Friday. 3 days. She'd been married less than 12 hours and already had social obligations. What kind of event? A gallery opening. Art world elite, old money, newer money trying to look old. He drank his coffee. You'll smile. Make polite conversation. Do not, under any circumstances, discuss our marriage, how we met, or anything about your previous life. What am I supposed to say when people ask? That we met through mutual friends. That it was love at first sight. That you're blissfully happy. His tone suggested he found the very concept ridiculous. They won't believe you, but they'll pretend to. That's how this world works. Love at first sight. Alara couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. You're a romantic. I'm a realist. Romance is a fairy tale sold to people who don't know better. He stood buttoning his jacket. I have meetings. Vincent will coordinate your schedule. Wait. She stood too. You can't just leave. I have questions. And you have all day to write them down for later. He was already moving toward the door. This is my world now, Alara. You'll adjust. Everyone does. He left her standing alone in the too large dining room, surrounded by uneaten food and the echo of his dismissal. Everyone does. How many people had he bought? How many lives had he reorganized to fit his convenience? Alara sat back down, staring at her wedding ring. The gold caught the light, beautiful and binding. She'd made her choice, signed the papers, said the vows. Now she had to figure out how to survive the consequences. The next 3 days passed in a blur of fittings, instructions, and rules. Vincent appeared that afternoon with a folder thick with information. Your schedule, Mrs. Verez. Mrs. Chen will wake you at 6 a.m. daily. Breakfast with Mr. Varese at 7 when he's available. Your mornings are for personal time, reading, exercise, whatever you prefer within the estate grounds. Lunch at noon. Afternoons may involve social obligations or charitable work, which we'll coordinate. Dinner at 7 when Mr. Varese is home. And when he's not home? You'll dine alone or with Mrs. Chen if you prefer company. Vincent's smile was professional, empty. Mr. Varese keeps irregular hours. His business often requires travel, late meetings, unexpected absences. You'll learn not to wait up. The wardrobe specialist came next, a severe woman named Diane who measured Alara like she was preparing a mannequin. Evening gowns, cocktail dresses, designer casual wear, shoes, bags, jewelry, an entire identity built from expensive fabric. For Friday, we'll go with the midnight blue Valentino, Diane decided, ignoring Alara's input entirely. It's elegant without being ostentatious, appropriate for a first public appearance. Alara was learning that her preferences didn't matter here. She was being molded into Mrs. Lucienne Varese, and that woman apparently wore midnight blue Valentino and smiled on command. The only time she saw Lucien was at meals, and even then, barely. He was always reading something, his phone constantly buzzing with messages. When he did speak, it was instructions, corrections, commands, never conversation. On Wednesday evening, 2 nights before the gallery opening, Alara finally broke. They were having dinner, another silent affair, the clink of silverware the only sound. Lucien was absorbed in a tablet, his expression cold. "Do you ever stop working?" she asked. He didn't look up. "No. Must be exhausting, being this important." Now he looked up. Sarcasm? "Observation." She set down her fork. "We've been married 3 days. You've spoken maybe 100 words to me total. If this is what the rest of my life looks like." "It is." The finality in his voice was chilling. "Then why marry at all? Why not just—" She gestured helplessly. "Pay off the debt and be done with it?" "Because I needed a wife. You were convenient." He returned to his tablet. "This conversation is pointless." "Everything about this is pointless." Her voice rose. "You don't want a wife. You want a prop. A doll you can dress up and parade around when needed. Lower your voice." "Why?" "Afraid the staff will hear. They already know this is a sham." Lucien set down the tablet with careful precision. When he spoke, his voice was very soft, very dangerous. "You're upset. That's understandable. This is an adjustment, but you will not raise your voice in this house. You will not create scenes. And you will remember that your comfort is not my concern. Your compliance is. I'm not a dog to be trained." He stood abruptly, and Alara flinched despite herself. But he didn't move toward her, just looked at her with those cold, dead eyes. "Friday night, you will attend the gallery opening on my arm. You will smile. You will charm. You will play the role of devoted wife. And when we return home, you will continue to play that role until I no longer require it." He walked to the door, paused. "That is the transaction. I saved your father's life. You gave me yours in return. Honor the agreement, Alara, or I'll show you exactly what happens when people don't." He left her shaking with rage and terror in equal measure. That night, Alara cried for the first time since the wedding. Not quiet tears, loud, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep in her chest. She cried for her lost freedom, her stolen future, her father's weakness. She cried until she was hollow. And when she was done, she looked at herself in the mirror, red-eyed, blotchy, broken, and made a decision. She would survive this. She would play the role. She would smile and charm and be Mrs. Varese in public. But behind closed doors, she would remain Alara Quinn. She would not disappear. She would not become just another possession. If Lucien Varese wanted compliance, fine. He could have it. But he would never have her. Friday arrived too quickly. Mrs. Chen helped her dress. The midnight blue Valentino fit like it was made for her, which it probably was. Hair swept up in an elegant twist, makeup subtle but perfect. Diamond earrings borrowed from the Varese vault. She looked like she belonged in this world, like she'd been born to wear designer gowns and million-dollar jewels. The woman in the mirror was a stranger. Lucien was waiting in the entrance hall, devastating in a Tom Ford tuxedo. He looked her over with that same appraising expression, calculating worth. "You'll do," he said. "You'll do." The same words from their wedding night. High praise, apparently. The drive to the gallery was silent. Lucien made phone calls, conducted business, ignored her completely. Alara stared out the window at the city passing by. Her city, the one she used to know, now viewed from behind bulletproof glass in a car worth more than most houses. The gallery was in the arts district, a converted warehouse flooded with people who'd never known hunger or fear. Alara recognized faces from magazines, from news reports. Old money, political power, the city's elite, gathered to admire art they'd never truly understand. Lucien's hand found the small of her back as they exited the car. Not affectionate, proprietary. "Remember," he murmured against her ear, "you're madly in love with me." Then he smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him, and it transformed his face, made him look warm, human, approachable. It was the most terrifying thing she'd witnessed yet. He was a perfect actor. They entered to immediate attention, heads turned, conversations paused. Alara felt the weight of 100 stares, all assessing, all calculating. "Lucien," a woman in her 60s, dripping diamonds. "We heard rumors, but we didn't believe. Is this her?" "Margaret." Lucien's smile never wavered. "May I present my wife, Alara?" The word wife sent ripples through the crowd. How wonderful! Margaret's eyes were cold despite her enthusiasm. "And how did you two meet?" "Through mutual friends," Alara said, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. "Mutual friends recommended a coffee shop, actually. I was reading. He sat down at my table without asking, and the rest is history." The lie came easily. Maybe she was a better actor than she thought. They moved through the crowd, Lucien's hand never leaving her back. He introduced her to bankers, politicians, other families whose names carried weight and blood. She smiled, made polite conversation, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, played her part perfectly. At one point, a man, younger, handsome in a way that felt dangerous, approached with a smirk. "Lucien, didn't think I'd see you at an art opening. Not exactly your scene." "Marcus." Lucien's tone cooled slightly. "Supporting the arts, you know how it is." Marcus's eyes slid to Alara, and something in his expression made her skin crawl. "And this must be the mysterious bride." "Alara, was it? I have to say, Lucien, she's not your usual type." "Careful." The word was soft, but the threat was unmistakable. Marcus held up his hands. "No offense meant, just surprised. Though I suppose surprise is the point, isn't it? Keep everyone guessing. Very clever." He walked away and Alara felt Lucien's hand tighten on her back. "Who was that?" she asked quietly. "No one important." But his jaw was tight. They moved to the bar and Lucien ordered drinks. Wine for her, whiskey for him. "You're doing well," he said, so quietly only she could hear. "Better than I expected." "Happy to exceed your low expectations." His lips twitched, almost a smile. Almost. Then a commotion near the entrance. Raised voices. Security moving quickly. Lucien's entire demeanor changed. The pleasant facade dropped, replaced by something cold and predatory. He handed his glass to a passing server and started toward the disturbance, Alara following instinctively. A man was arguing with security, drunk, belligerent, his face flushed. "I'm invited. I have every right to be here." "Sir, you need to leave. Don't touch me. Do you know who I am?" Lucien appeared beside the man like a shadow, and the entire confrontation stopped. The drunk man looked up, recognition and fear flooding his features. "Mr. Varese, You're causing a scene." Lucien's voice was conversational, almost pleasant. "Disturbing my evening. I don't appreciate that." I didn't mean..." Then the man's eyes found Alara, and he sneered. "Oh, I see. Showing off the new wife. Tell me, sweetheart, did he buy you retail or wholesale?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Lucien moved, faster than Alara could track. One moment he was beside her. The next, he had the man against the wall, forearm pressed to his throat. "Apologize." Each word was carved from ice. "To my wife. Now." The man's face turned purple. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Varese. Lucien released him, stepping back smoothly. "Security. Remove him, quietly." Two large men materialized and escorted the drunk away. The gathered crowd murmured, then slowly returned to their conversations, as if nothing had happened, as if violence was just another form of entertainment. Lucian turned to Alara, and she saw something in his eyes. A question, maybe. Concern? Are you all right? She stared at him, this man who'd defended her honor while treating her like property, who'd nearly choked someone for insulting her while barely speaking to her at home. The contradictions made her dizzy. I'm fine, she managed. He studied her face for a moment longer, then offered his arm. Shall we? They continued through the gallery, admiring art neither of them cared about, playing their roles. But something had shifted. For the first time since their wedding, Lucien had looked at her like she was a person. Not property, not an obligation, a person worth defending. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. The ride home from the gallery was different than the ride there. Lucien still made phone calls, still conducted business, but twice he glanced at her. Brief looks, barely a second each, but Alara felt them like weight. She stared at her hands, at the wedding ring that caught the passing streetlights. Her mind replayed the moment at the gallery, Lucien's forearm pressed to that man's throat, the way everyone had watched and then looked away. The casual acceptance of violence. This was her world now, a place where brutality wore tuxedos and threats came wrapped in polite conversation. You handled yourself well tonight. Lucien's voice broke the silence. Alara looked up, surprised. Thank you. Most people freeze their first time in that environment. You didn't. He pocketed his phone, giving her his full attention for the first time all evening. Where did you learn to lie so smoothly? I wasn't lying, I was performing. She met his eyes. There's a difference. Is there? Lying is about deception. Performing is about survival. She turned back to the window. You should understand that better than anyone. She felt his stare, heavy and assessing. Meaning? Meaning you're the best performer I've ever seen. That smile at the gallery, warm, charming, completely genuine, and completely false. She faced him again. You made them all believe you're human. Something flickered across his face. Anger, maybe, or something darker. And you don't think I am? I think you're whatever you need to be to get what you want. Alara's voice was steady, despite her racing heart. Tonight you needed to be a devoted husband, so you became one. Tomorrow, you'll need to be something else. The car fell silent. Lucien's jaw tightened, and Alara wondered if she'd gone too far. If honesty was another rule she wasn't supposed to break. But when he spoke, his voice was almost curious. You're not afraid of me. I'm terrified of you. The admission came easily. But fear and silence aren't the same thing. He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Not the performance from the gallery, something smaller, almost real. Perhaps you'll be more interesting than I anticipated. It wasn't a compliment, not really, but it wasn't dismissal either. The car pulled through the estate gates, and Alara felt the familiar weight of captivity settle over her shoulders. The night was over. Back to being strangers living in the same fortress. Except Lucien didn't immediately disappear into his wing when they entered the house. He walked with her to the grand staircase, his hand finding that same spot on her lower back. Next week there's a business dinner, Tuesday. He paused at the base of the stairs. 8 people, some of my associates and their wives. You'll need to host. Host? Plan the menu, coordinate with the staff, make conversation. Play the gracious Mrs. Verez. His hand dropped away. Can you do that? It wasn't really a question, but Alara heard the test beneath it. I can do that? Good. He turned toward his wing, then stopped. Alara. She'd started up the stairs, but his use of her name, the first time outside of commands, made her pause. Yes? What that man said tonight about buying you. Lucien's eyes were dark, unreadable. He was wrong. Was he? I didn't buy you. I acquired you through a negotiation. There's a difference. Alara laughed, sharp and bitter. Is there? Yes, when you buy something, it has value. When you acquire something through negotiation, it has use. He held her gaze. You're useful, Alara. Don't forget that. He walked away, leaving her standing on the stairs, fury and something else burning in her chest. Useful. Not valued. Useful. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to run after him and demand he see her as more than a transaction. Instead, she climbed to her gilded cage and added another rule to the list she was learning: never expect humanity from a man who'd forgotten what it meant to be human. The weekend passed in a strange new rhythm. Lucien didn't disappear entirely like he had the first few days. He was simply present. In the library Saturday morning when she went looking for something to read. In the gym Saturday afternoon when she attempted to use the treadmill. At dinner both nights, actually engaging in minimal conversation. He asked about the business dinner, about menu preferences, about whether she needed anything. All practical questions. Nothing personal, but it was more than silence. Ilara began to understand the game. He was training her, teaching her through exposure and expectation. Every interaction was a lesson in how to be Mrs. Lucien Verres. She hated that it was working. Sunday afternoon, she was reading in the conservatory, a beautiful glass-walled room filled with plants she didn't recognize, when Vincent appeared. Mrs. Verres? Mr. Verres requests your presence in his study. Ilara set down her book. Now? Immediately. The walk to Lucien's private wing felt longer than it was. She'd been told not to enter uninvited, and she'd obeyed. This was the first time she'd been summoned. Vincent knocked twice on the heavy oak door. Come. The study was exactly as she remembered from their wedding night. Dark wood, leather, money. Lucien sat behind his massive desk, papers spread before him. Another man stood by the window, older, with silver threading his dark hair. Ilara. Lucien gestured to a chair. Sit. This is Marco Santini. He handles security for the estate. Marco nodded politely, but his eyes were cold. Assessing. Ilara sat, her stomach nodding. What's this about? Your safety. Lucien pushed a folder across the desk. As my wife, you're now a potential target. Marco needs to establish protocols. She opened the folder. Photos of men she didn't recognize. Names. Organizations. Threat assessments. Target for what? Kidnapping, leverage, violence. Lucien's tone was matter-of-fact. My business makes enemies. Some of those enemies will see you as weakness. Weakness. The word tasted bitter. Interesting choice. A vulnerability, then. He leaned back in his chair. You'll have a security detail starting tomorrow. 2 guards, rotating shifts. They'll be discreet, but constant. I'll be followed everywhere? Protected everywhere. Marco spoke for the first time. Within the estate grounds, the threat is minimal. Outside, he gestured to the folder. These men would kill you to hurt him. We need to ensure that doesn't happen. Ilara looked at the photos again. Hard faces. Dead eyes. Men who saw violence as business. What about my father? Lucien's expression didn't change. What about him? Is he safe? If these people know about me, they know about him. Your father is being monitored. If there's a credible threat, we'll move him to a secure location. Lucien stood, buttoning his jacket. But he's not my priority. You are. Because she was useful. Because she was his property to protect. I want to see him. No. The flat refusal shouldn't have surprised her. But it did. He's my father, and a weakness someone could exploit. You'll have no contact until Marco determines it's safe. Ilara stood, anger overriding caution. You can't keep me from my own father. I can, and I will. Lucien walked around the desk, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Your safety is non-negotiable. That means no contact with your previous life until the threat is contained. How long? However long it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. He moved past her toward the door. Marco will coordinate with Mrs. Chen on the security arrangements. Cooperate with them, Ilara. This isn't optional. He left. Just walked out of his own study, leaving her standing there with Marco and a folder full of men who wanted her dead. He's trying to protect you, Marco said quietly. I know it doesn't feel like it, but he is. By isolating me completely, by keeping you alive. Marco collected the folder. In this world, Mrs. Verres, alive is the best outcome most people can hope for. That night, Ilara stood at her window watching security patrol the grounds, watching her prison become a fortress, watching her already limited freedom shrink even further. She thought about her father, about whether he knew she was safe, whether he regretted the choices that had led them here. whether he thought about her at all. The tears came without warning, hot and bitter. She'd been so focused on surviving, on maintaining her identity, that she hadn't let herself grieve. Grieve for the life she'd lost, the future that had been stolen. She cried until she was empty, then washed her face and looked at herself in the mirror. Red eyes, blotchy skin, the face of someone breaking. No, she said it aloud, firmly. No, you don't get to break. If Lucien thought she was just a useful acquisition, she'd prove otherwise. She'd play his game, follow his rules, be the perfect Mrs. Varese, and she'd find a way to reclaim herself in the process. Tuesday arrived with military precision. Mrs. Chen appeared at dawn with schedules, menu options, and a crash course in entertaining Varese style. The Marchettis are old money, very traditional. Mrs. Marchetti will judge everything, your dress, your conversation, your posture. Don't give her ammunition. Mrs. Chen handed Alara a file. The Kowalskis are newer to this world. They'll be trying to impress you. Be gracious, but not warm. The Castillos are Lucien's oldest allies. Elena Castillo is sharp. She'll see through any performance, so be genuine. Alara's head spun. How am I supposed to remember all this? You will, because you must. Mrs. Chen's smile was sympathetic but firm. This dinner is a test. Everyone will be watching to see if you're worthy of being Mrs. Varese. Don't fail. The pressure was suffocating. Alara spent the day coordinating with the chef, a temperamental man named Paolo who had opinions about everything. She approved wines she'd never tasted, flowers she couldn't name, place settings that cost more than her father's monthly rent. All for 8 people in their judgment. At 6, Diane arrived with the evening's wardrobe, an emerald green dress that hugged her curves without being inappropriate, hair down in soft waves, jewelry that was elegant without being ostentatious. Remember, Diane said as she made final adjustments, you're not trying to outshine the other wives. You're establishing yourself as Lucien's equal. I'm not his equal. No, but they don't know that. Diane stepped back, assessing. Perfect. Now go be Mrs. Varese. The first guests arrived at 7:30. Marco and Elena Castillo, mid-50s, elegant, with eyes that missed nothing. Elena embraced Alara like they were old friends. Finally, we meet the woman who tamed Lucienne Varese. Her smile was warm, but her gaze was calculating. I've been dying of curiosity. There was no taming involved, Alara said smoothly. More like mutual surrender. Elena laughed. I like her already, Lucienne. Lucienne appeared at Alara's side, his hand finding her waist. The touch still felt proprietary, but in front of guests, it looked affectionate. I knew you would, he said. The Marchettis arrived next, exactly on time, as Mrs. Chen had predicted. Sophia Marchetti was 60 if she was a day, wearing diamonds that could fund a small country. Her husband, Roberto, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Sophia's eyes raked over Alara with barely concealed disdain. How quaint! You're younger than I expected. And you're exactly as lovely as Lucien described, Alara replied, her smile never wavering. Sophia's expression suggested Lucien had never mentioned her at all. The Kowalskis were last, nervous, eager, clearly trying too hard. Anna Kowalski complimented everything, the house, the flowers, Alara's dress. It was exhausting. Dinner was served in the formal dining room, the table that seated 20, now set for 8. Lucien sat at the head, Alara to his right. The perfect arrangement. Conversation flowed around wine and courses, business disguised as small talk. Alara listened more than she spoke, learning the language of this world. The way they discussed opportunities instead of crimes, associates instead of criminals, negotiations instead of threats. So, Alara, Sophia said during the second course, what did you do before marrying Lucien? The question was a trap. Anything she said would be judged. I was a student, literature and writing, the truth if incomplete. Lucien convinced me that real life was more interesting than books. How romantic! Sophia's tone suggested it was anything but. And your family? What do they think of this whirlwind courtship? Alara felt Lucien's hand on her thigh under the table. A warning or support, she wasn't sure. My mother passed away several years ago. My father supports whatever makes me happy. She met Sophia's eyes. And Lucien makes me very happy. The lie was smooth, perfect. Everything she'd been trained to deliver. Elena raised her glass. To happiness, then. May it last. The toast felt like a challenge. As dessert was served, Roberto Marchetti turned to Lucien. The situation with the Morettis. Any progress? Lucien's expression didn't change, but Ilara felt his body tense. Being handled. They're getting bold. Last week's incident is being handled. The words were final. Not dinner conversation, Roberto. The table fell silent. Even Sophia looked uncomfortable. Then Anna Kowalski, bless her nervous heart, jumped in with a story about her daughter's piano recital, and the tension broke. After dinner, the women retired to the sitting room while the men disappeared into Lucien's study. Ilara poured coffee with hands that didn't shake, playing hostess like she'd been born to it. You did well tonight, Elena said quietly. Better than expected. Expected? You're not from this world. We all wondered if you'd survive it. Elena's smile was knowing. But you're stronger than you look. I'd have to be. Ilara handed her a cup. To survive being married to Lucien. He's not as cold as he seems. Isn't he? Elena considered her carefully. Lucien Varese is many things. Cold, ruthless, dangerous, but he's also loyal to a fault. If he's claimed you as his, he'll protect you with everything he has. I'm not sure being claimed is the comfort you think it is. No, but in this world, it's better than the alternative. Elena sipped her coffee. Just don't mistake his protection for affection. Lucien doesn't know how to love, he only knows how to own. The words settled into Ilara's chest like stones. Sophia, listening from her perch on the settee, made a dismissive sound. Love. Such a pedestrian concern. In marriages like ours, respect and utility matter far more. And which do you have? Ilara asked before she could stop herself. Sophia's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? Respect or utility. In your marriage. The silence was deafening. Anna looked horrified. Elena looked delighted. Then Sophia laughed, sharp and bitter. Utility, dear? Always utility. Roberto needs my family connections. I need his money. Love never entered the equation. At least you're honest about it. Honesty is all we have in this world. Sophia stood, smoothing her dress. The men lie about everything else. When the guests finally left, close to midnight, Ilara felt like she'd run a marathon. Her face hurt from smiling. Her voice was hoarse from performing. Lucien walked the last couple to their car, then returned to find her in the entrance hall, removing her heels. You survived. He loosened his tie, the first casual gesture she'd seen from him all night. Was there doubt? Sophia Marchetti eats debutantes for breakfast. The fact that you not only held your own but made her laugh. He almost smiled. Impressive. She hates me. She hates everyone. That she respected you enough to show it is a compliment. He studied her face. You're exhausted. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar when you're tired. He gestured toward the stairs. Go. Rest. You earned it. Ilara started to leave, then paused. The Morettis. What Roberto mentioned. Should I be worried? Lucien's expression shuddered. No. You're lying. I'm protecting you from concerns that aren't yours to carry. He moved closer, and Ilara fought the urge to step back. The Morettis are a problem, but they're my problem, not yours. If they're a threat to you, they're a threat to me. Then trust that I'll handle them. His hand lifted, almost touched her face, then dropped. Get some sleep, Ilara. She climbed the stairs, feeling his eyes on her back the entire way. In her room, she stripped off the dress and jewelry, washing away the performance. But Elena's words echoed in her mind. Lucien doesn't know how to love. He only knows how to own. Was that true? Or was it just what everyone believed because it was easier than seeing the truth? Ilara looked at her reflection, still her face, but with something different in her eyes. Something harder. She was changing. Whether she wanted to or not, this world was changing her. The question was, would there be anything left of the real Ilara when it was done? The next morning, Ilara woke to find two men in suits standing outside her door, her new security detail. Mrs. Varese? The taller one nodded. I'm Jensen. This is Torres. We'll be accompanying you whenever you leave your wing. Even inside the house? Especially inside the house. Torres's expression was serious. Mr. Varis's orders. So the cage had gotten smaller, tighter. Alara spent the next few days learning to navigate life with constant shadows. Jensen and Torres were professional, quiet, nearly invisible. But their presence was a constant reminder that danger lurked even here, in this fortress. She tried to establish routines. Morning walks in the garden, with Jensen trailing 10 feet behind. Afternoons in the library, with Torres stationed outside. Evenings alone, reading or staring at walls. Lucien was gone more than he was home. Business trips, he said. But Alara wondered if he was avoiding her, if the dinner had revealed too much humanity, and he was pulling back before she could see more. Friday afternoon, Mrs. Chen appeared with an envelope. This arrived for you. Inside was a single piece of paper, no signature, just 4 words in block letters, he can't protect you. Alara's blood turned to ice. Mrs. Chen! But the older woman was already gone, and Jensen was entering, his hand on his weapon. What is it? She handed him the note. Watched his expression harden. Torres. Lock down the wing. Now. Jensen spoke into his radio, rapid-fire commands. Then to Alara. Come with me. We're moving you to a secure location until Mr. Varis returns. Returns? Where is he? Chicago. Business meeting. He's already been notified. He's on his way back. They moved through the house at a near run, Torres ahead, Jensen behind. Staff scattered, doors locked. The mansion transformed from home to fortress in seconds. They ended up in a windowless room in the basement, part panic room, part bunker. Steel door. Reinforced walls. Enough supplies for a week. Stay here, Jensen checked the perimeter. Don't open this door for anyone except Mr. Vares or myself. What about Torres? Torres is securing the upper levels. If someone got inside to deliver that note, there's a breach. His expression was grim. We're on full lockdown until we find it. He left, and the heavy door sealed behind him with a sound like a tomb closing. Alara sat in the silence, the note clutched in her hand. He can't protect you. Who had sent it? And what did they want? Hours passed, no phone, no windows, just fluorescent lights and the sound of her own breathing. She was going mad with the waiting when the door finally opened. Lucien stood there, still in his travel clothes, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. Are you hurt? His eyes raked over her, checking for damage. No, I'm fine, just scared. He stepped inside and the door sealed again. They were alone in the bunker and Alara suddenly understood why he'd come himself. He needed to see her, to confirm she was whole. The note. He held out his hand. She gave it to him, watched his jaw tighten as he read. Who delivered it? I don't know. Mrs. Chen just brought it to me. Marco is questioning the staff now. Someone got past our security. Someone who knew exactly where to strike. He crumpled the note. This is my fault. How is this your fault? Because I made you visible. The gallery, the dinner, I paraded you in front of everyone, showed them my weakness. His fist slammed against the wall, and Alara jumped. I should have kept you hidden. I'm not a secret to be locked away. You're a target because of me. His voice rose, raw with something that sounded almost like pain. Everything you said that first night, about being bought, about being a prisoner, you were right. And now you might die for it. The vulnerability in his voice shocked her. I'm not going to die. You don't know that. He turned to face her fully, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Fear. These people, the Morettis, whoever sent this, they don't make empty threats. If they say they can get to you, they can. Then what do we do? I increase security. I limit your movements even more. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. I don't know. This is what I do, Alara. I control things. I manage threats. But you... He gestured helplessly. You're not a variable I know how to manage. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to her. Alara moved closer, drawn by his brokenness. Then stop trying to manage me. Start trusting me. Trust you? I'm in this whether I want to be or not. Stop treating me like cargo and start treating me like an ally. She held his gaze. You said I was useful. So use me. Teach me how to survive this world instead of just locking me away from it. He stared at her, something shifting behind his eyes, calculating, considering. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Then Lucien's phone buzzed. He answered it without breaking eye contact with her. Talk to me, Marco. A pause. You're certain? Another pause, longer this time. His expression darkened further. I'll be up in 5 minutes. No one moves until I get there. He ended the call. They found the breach. One of the new hires in the kitchen. He's been here less than a month. Lucien's voice was cold again, the moment of vulnerability sealed away. He's in the interrogation room. Would you like to watch? Watch what? Watch how we handle traitors in this world. He moved to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. You wanted to learn how to survive here. This is lesson 1. Loyalty is everything. Betrayal has consequences. Alara's stomach churned, but she nodded. She'd asked for this, asked to be included. Now she'd see exactly what that meant. They walked through corridors Alara had never seen before, deeper into the mansion's hidden architecture. Lucien moved with purpose, his earlier vulnerability locked behind the cold mask she'd come to recognize. But something had changed between them in that bunker. Some barrier had cracked, if not broken. The interrogation room was in a sub-basement she hadn't known existed. Concrete walls. No windows. A single door with a biometric lock that recognized Lucien's handprint. Last chance to walk away, he said, his hand hovering over the scanner. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her voice steady. I'm not walking away. He searched her face for something. Doubt, fear, weakness. Whatever he found made him nod once, sharp and final. The door opened. The room beyond was smaller than she'd expected, divided by a wall of one-way glass. On their side, chairs, a control panel, speakers. On the other side, a man bound to a metal chair, his face already showing signs of Marco's questions. Blood trickled from his split lip. His left eye was swelling shut. Marco stood beside him, arms crossed, radiating controlled violence. 2 other men flanked the door, guards or participants. Alara couldn't tell. That's him? Lucien's voice came through a speaker filling both rooms. The bound man's head snapped up, his one good eye wide with terror. Mr. Varese, please, I can explain. Explain how you breached my security? Explain how you delivered a threat to my wife? Lucien's tone was conversational, almost pleasant. It was more terrifying than shouting would have been. Please, enlighten me. They said they'd kill my sister. They have her, Mr. Varese. They took her 3 days ago, and they said, if I didn't... Who took her? I don't know. They wore masks. They never said names. Lucien pressed a button on the console. Marco moved with brutal efficiency, his fist connecting with the man's ribs. The sound of impact made Alara flinch. Let's try again. Lucien's voice remained calm. Who took her? The man gasped for air, tears streaming down his face. I swear I don't know. They contacted me, showed me proof they had Maria, and gave me instructions. Deliver the note. Report on Mrs. Varese's movements. That's all. Report to whom? A phone number, untraceable. I tried... Another blow cut off his words. He coughed, blood speckling his lips. Please, she's my sister. She's only 19. Alara's hands clenched in her lap. This man wasn't evil. He was desperate. Exactly as desperate as her father had been, making choices that would destroy him to save someone he loved. She understood him, and she hated that she did. Lucien. She spoke quietly, but he heard her, turned to look at her with those dark, fathomless eyes. His sister. Is she real? Marco verified it. Maria Delgado, 19, student at the community college. Disappeared from her apartment Tuesday night. His expression didn't change. Doesn't change what he did. He was protecting family. He endangered mine. The possessiveness in that word, mine, sent something warm and dangerous through Alara's chest. She pushed it away, focused on the man bleeding on the other side of the glass. If you kill him, you learn nothing, and his sister dies too. I don't negotiate with traitors. I'm not asking you to negotiate. I'm asking you to be smart. She stood, moving to stand beside him, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, the tension coiled in his frame. Use him. Whoever took his sister will contact him again. Make him report back that the note was delivered. That I'm scared. Give them what they want while you hunt them down. Marco's voice crackled through the speaker. The girl makes sense, boss. Lucien's jaw tightened. He didn't like being questioned, even by her. especially by her. But she saw the calculation in his eyes, the predator recognizing better prey. If I do this, he said slowly, he works for me now. Completely. One misstep, and both he and his sister die. Make sure he understands that, Marco. With pleasure. Lucian turned off the speaker and faced Alara fully. They were close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, close enough that she could see the silver flecks in the dark depths. You're soft, he said. That's dangerous. I'm strategic. That's useful. She held his gaze. You said I was useful, remember? Let me prove it. For a long moment they stood there, locked in silent battle. Then Lucien's lips quirked, not quite a smile, but something adjacent. You're either brilliant or foolish. I haven't decided which. Can I be both? In this world? No. You live or die based on which one wins. He moved past her toward the door. Marco will handle Delgado. You and I need to talk. They returned to his study, the same room where this had all begun weeks ago. Lucien poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one, then stood by the window looking out at the estate grounds. You want to be included, he said. Taught how to survive here. You understand what that means? I think so. No, you don't. He turned to face her. It means learning to see people as assets or threats. It means understanding that loyalty is purchased, not earned. It means accepting that sometimes good people die because they're in the way. He took a drink. It means becoming someone your former self would hate. Alara thought about the girl she'd been 3 weeks ago. The one who'd washed dishes and studied literature and believed the world was fundamentally good. That girl was gone, killed the moment she had signed her name on a marriage certificate. Maybe I already am someone she'd hate, Alara said quietly. Then this will be easier than I thought. Lucien set down his glass and pulled out his phone, swiping through screens. The Morettis. You need to understand who they are and what they want. He showed her photos, crime scene images, surveillance footage, a family tree that looked more like a web of violence. Antonio Moretti runs their operations. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking, everything I won't touch, they specialize in. His finger traced connections on the screen. We've been at peace for 5 years, but that peace was always fragile, built on mutual benefit, not trust. What changed? I refused a partnership 6 months ago. They wanted to use my shipping routes for their product. I said no. He pulled up more images, burned buildings, bodies. This is how they respond to rejection. They're escalating. They're testing me, seeing if marriage made me weak, if having something to lose changed the equation. He looked at her. They're right to wonder. I'm not a weakness. No? His voice softened, turned almost gentle. Then why did I cut short a $50 million deal in Chicago the moment I heard you were threatened? Why did I fly back here at Mach speed when I should have stayed to close negotiations? He moved closer. You're absolutely a weakness, Alara. The question is whether I can afford to have one. The admission hung between them, heavy with implications neither wanted to examine. So what do we do? Alara's voice came out rougher than intended. We identify who inside their organization grabbed Maria Delgado. We find where they're keeping her. We extract her and eliminate the threat. He said it like he was discussing dinner plans. And we send a message that my family is untouchable. Family. He'd said it twice now, first possessively, now protectively. Alara wondered if he realized he was doing it. How long will that take? Days? Maybe weeks. He moved to his desk, pulling up files on his computer. In the meantime, you stay inside the estate. No exceptions. I've been inside the estate this whole time. I mean, inside the main house. No gardens, no walks. No leaving your wing except for meals. His eyes met hers. I know it's a cage, but it's a cage that keeps you breathing. She wanted to argue, to fight for what little freedom she had left, but the memory of that note, he can't protect you, made her swallow the protests. Okay. Lucien blinked, clearly expecting resistance. Okay? You want me to learn this world? I'm learning. Sometimes survival means accepting limitations. She moved to the window, looking out at the grounds she couldn't walk. But I need something in return. You're negotiating now? You said this was a transaction. Transactions go both ways. She turned to face him. I want to know what's happening. Regular updates. No more silence. No more treating me like I'm too delicate for the truth. And if the truth is ugly, then it matches everything else about my life. She crossed her arms. Deal? He studied her for a long moment, and she saw something shift in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. Deal. He held out his hand. Alara took it, his palm warm and rough against hers. The handshake lasted a beat too long, his thumb brushing against her wrist in a way that felt less like business and more like something neither of them wanted to name. She pulled away first. The next days blurred into a strange new existence. Alara's world shrank to her wing and the main floor, but her understanding expanded exponentially. Lucien kept his word. Every evening he briefed her on developments. Marco had flipped Delgado, who was now feeding false information back to his handlers. They'd traced the phone number to a burner, the burner to a warehouse in the industrial district, the warehouse to a shell company owned by Antonio Moretti's nephew. We move on the warehouse tomorrow night, Lucien told her over dinner Thursday. If Maria's there, we extract her. If not, we make someone tell us where she is. And if they won't talk, they'll talk. The certainty in his voice was chilling. Everyone talks eventually. Friday morning, Alara woke to find Lucien in her sitting room, not waiting in the hallway, not summoning her through Mrs. Chen, actually inside her private space, drinking coffee and reading on his tablet. What are you doing here? She pulled her robe tighter, suddenly conscious of her sleep-mussed hair and bare feet. Waiting for you to wake up. He didn't look up from his screen. We need to discuss tonight. Tonight? The warehouse operation. You're staying here under guard, but I need you to understand what's happening and why. He finally looked at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. If something goes wrong, he continued, as if she hadn't spoken, Jensen has instructions. He'll take you to a safe house upstate. Money, documents, everything you need to disappear. The words hit her like cold water. You're planning for your death. I'm planning for contingencies. He set down the tablet. This is what I do, Alara. Every operation carries risk. Most people in my position don't live past 40. I'm 36. I'm living on borrowed time already. She sat down hard on the couch, the casualness of his mortality assessment stealing her breath. You can't talk about dying like it's inevitable. In my world, it is. He moved to sit beside her, closer than he'd ever voluntarily chosen to be. I'm not afraid of death. I've made peace with it. But I am concerned about what happens to you if I'm not here to protect you. I don't need... You do. Whether you want to or not, you're tied to me now. My enemies are your enemies. My death would make you either a target or a prize, depending on who wins the power vacuum. His hand found hers, his fingers lacing through hers in a gesture that felt more intimate than any kiss. Promise me if Jensen says run, you run. No questions, no hesitation. Lucien, promise me, Alara. She looked at their joined hands, at the wedding rings that matched, at the man who'd bought her and somehow become the only solid thing in her shifting world. I promise. He nodded once, then stood, releasing her hand. The loss of contact felt wrong. I leave at midnight. The operation takes 3 hours, maybe 4. I'll be back by dawn. He moved toward the door, paused. Don't wait up. But she would. They both knew she would. The day crawled past with agonizing slowness. Alara tried to read, to eat, to pretend everything was normal, but every sound made her jump. Every footstep in the hallway sent her heart racing. Jensen and Torres positioned themselves outside her wing, armed and alert. Mrs. Chen brought dinner she couldn't eat and tea she didn't drink. At 11:30, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Change of plans. Meet me in the garage. Now. L. Alara stared at the message. Lucien never texted, never deviated from plans, and he certainly never used initialisms. Something was wrong. She opened her door. Jensen was there instantly. Ma'am? Did Mr. Verre send for me? No, ma'am. He's in the armory with Marco, prepping for tonight. The armory, not the garage. Alara showed him the phone. This just came through. Jensen's expression went hard. That's not for Mr. Varese. Torres, get her inside. Now. But Torres was already crumpling to the floor, a dart protruding from his neck. Everything happened at once. Jensen reached for his weapon, but another dart took him down. Alara started to run, but hands grabbed her from behind. A cloth pressed over her mouth and nose. Chemical sweetness flooded her senses. She tried to fight, tried to scream, but her body wasn't responding. The world tilted, blurred, faded to black. Her last thought was that she'd broken her promise. She wouldn't run. Couldn't run. Lucien would never forgive her for that. She woke to darkness and pain. Her head throbbed, her mouth tasted like copper and chemicals, and her hands were bound behind her back with something that cut into her wrists. Alara blinked, trying to focus. Slowly, shapes emerged from the darkness. Concrete walls, a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, metal shelving units stacked with boxes, a warehouse. Not the one Lucien had planned to raid, this one was smaller, dirtier, smelling of rust and old oil. "She's awake," the voice came from her left. Alara turned her head too fast, sending waves of nausea through her system. A man emerged from the shadows, mid-40s, expensive suit, cold smile. "Mrs. Varese, welcome. I apologize for the accommodations, but we're working with limited time." "Who are you?" "Disappointed you don't recognize me. I'm Antonio Moretti." He crouched in front of her, his smile widening. "We met briefly at a charity gala last year. Of course, you weren't Mrs. Varese then. You were just another pretty face in the crowd." Last year, before the wedding, before her father's debts, before any of this nightmare began. "What do you want?" "Initially, to hurt Lucien Varese by taking something he valued. But then I started digging into you and I discovered something fascinating." Antonio's hand reached out, gripping her chin and forcing her to meet his eyes. "You're not just a wife. You're a debt payment, a transaction. He doesn't love you. He owns you." Alara said nothing, couldn't say anything past the fear choking her throat. "Which makes this even more interesting," Antonio continued. "Because despite not loving you, despite treating you like property, Lucien still canceled a major deal to rush back when you were threatened, still doubled your security, still moved you to the safest location in his fortress." He released her chin. "So either he's going soft, or you're more valuable than even he realizes. You won't get away with this. He'll find me." "Oh, I'm counting on it." Antonio stood, brushing off his knees. "In fact, I've already sent him your location. He should be here in..." He checked his watch. 20 minutes. Maybe 30, if he's being cautious. "Then you've signed your death warrant." "Have I?" "See, that's where you're wrong." Antonio gestured to the warehouse around them. "Lucien thinks he's walking into a rescue mission. What he doesn't know is that I've rigged this entire building to explode the moment he crosses the threshold." The words took a moment to register. When they did, ice flooded Alara's veins. "You're going to kill him. I'm going to eliminate the biggest obstacle to my expansion in this city, and you're going to be the bait that makes him lower his guard." Antonio's smile turned cruel. The great Lucien Varese, brought down by the one thing he swore he'd never have, someone to lose. He'll know it's a trap. Will he? You're his wife, his property, his responsibility. He'll come because not coming would show weakness, and Lucien Varese cannot afford to appear weak. Antonio moved toward the exit. "I'm going to watch from across the street, see if the explosion kills him outright or if he survives long enough to burn. Either way, this ends tonight." "Wait," Alara struggled against her bonds. "You don't have to do this. Whatever he did to you, whatever happened between you, what happened is that Lucien Varese has controlled this city for a decade, decided who lives, who dies, who gets to do business, and who gets shut down. He's judge, jury, and executioner, and I'm tired of living under his rules." Antonio paused at the door. "His death creates opportunities. For me, for everyone he's crushed under his heel. So yes, Mrs. Varese, I absolutely have to do this." The door slammed shut, followed by the sound of locks engaging. Alara was alone in a warehouse rigged to explode, and Lucien was racing toward his death to save her. She looked around frantically, searching for anything that could help. The ropes binding her wrists were professional, tight, secure, no obvious weak points. Her ankles were similarly bound. Even if she could get free, the door was locked from the outside. She was trapped, helpless. exactly what she'd sworn she'd never be again. Think, she commanded herself. Think like he taught you. Assets or threats. What can you use? The shelving units were old, rusted in places. If she could knock one over, maybe create enough noise to alert Lucien before he entered. Or maybe her phone. She'd had it when they took her. Had they removed it? Alara twisted her hands, ignoring the bite of rope against her skin. Her fingers found the pocket of her robe, found the hard shape of her phone still inside. Thank God for incompetent kidnappers. But her hands were bound behind her. She couldn't reach the phone to use it. Unless. Alara twisted, using the concrete wall to slowly work the phone out of her pocket. It took 3 agonizing minutes, the device sliding millimeter by millimeter until it finally dropped to the floor with a crack that made her wince. Please don't be broken. Please, please, please. She maneuvered herself until she could see the screen. Cracked but functional. She navigated using her nose, awkward and desperate, until she found Lucien's contact. Calling would alert Antonio's people. But texting. She pressed her nose to the voice-to-text button. Trap, she said clearly. Warehouse is rigged to explode. Don't enter. It's a trap. Moretti planned this. Save yourself. The message sent just as she heard vehicles outside. Multiple engines. Car doors slamming. Lucien was here, and she had no way of knowing if he'd seen her message in time. The warehouse door crashed open with a sound like thunder. Alara's heart stopped, her scream trapped in her throat. If he'd entered, they were both dead. But the door stayed open, and Lucien's voice, alive, furious, beautiful, echoed through the space. Alara, can you move? I'm bound, but don't come in, it's rigged. I know, I got your message. His voice was closer now, but still outside. Marco's checking for the detonator. How many explosives can you see? Alara scanned the warehouse, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. I see wires running from the door to... She followed the lines. 4 devices. Maybe more I can't see. Describe them. She did, in as much detail as she could manage. Heard Lucien relaying information to someone, heard Marco's voice responding with technical jargon she didn't understand. How long? Lucien asked. 7 minutes to disable the primary trigger, Marco called back. But if there's a backup, then we have 7 minutes. Lucien's voice hardened with decision. I'm coming in. No! Alara's scream was raw. If there's a backup, you'll die. If I don't come in, you'll die when Moretti detonates it remotely. His silhouette appeared in the doorway, backlit by security lights. 7 minutes, Alara, I can get you out in 7 minutes. Or you can leave me here and get to safety. Not an option. He stepped inside, his eyes finding hers across the warehouse. Never an option. He moved toward her with controlled urgency, his gaze sweeping the space for additional threats. Behind him, Marco worked at the door mechanism, tools glinting in the weak light. Lucien reached her in seconds, dropping to his knees and pulling a knife from his belt. The ropes fell away from her wrists and ankles, and suddenly she was free, his hand steadying her as feeling rushed back into her limbs. Can you walk? I think so. An explosion rocked the building, not from inside, from outside. Car alarms shrieked. Someone screamed. That's the diversion, Lucien said grimly. Moretti knows we're here. Marco. 3 minutes. Lucien pulled Alara to her feet, his arm around her waist supporting her weight. They moved toward the door, but Marco held up a hand. Don't. The primary's on a pressure sensor. You step on that threshold wrong, we all go up. Then how do we get out? Alara's voice shook. We don't. Not until I disarm it. Marco's hands moved with practiced precision, but sweat beaded on his forehead. 2 minutes. Another explosion outside. Closer this time. Gunfire erupted, rapid, sustained, Lucien's people engaging Moretti's. They're advancing on the building, one of Lucien's men called through the open door. Orders, boss? Hold the perimeter, no one gets to this building. Lucien's voice was ice and iron. I don't care what you have to do. More gunfire, a scream cut short. The sounds of war happening just beyond the walls. 1 minute, Marco said. Alara felt Lucien's arms tighten around her, his body shifting to shield hers. If the explosion came, he'd take the brunt of it, die protecting her, die for her. Lucien. She turned in his arms, her hands finding his face. If this doesn't work, it will work. But if it doesn't, I need you to know. The words caught in her throat. How did she tell him that somewhere in this nightmare, Between the fear and anger and desperate survival, she'd stopped seeing him as her captor, that she'd started seeing him as her partner. I need you to know I'm glad it was you, glad I married you instead of 30 seconds. His hand cupped the back of her head, pulling her forehead to his. We're not dying today, Alara. I won't allow it. 20 seconds. You don't control everything, she whispered. Watch me. His lips brushed her temple, barely a kiss, just breath and warmth and promise. I'm not losing you. 10 seconds. The world narrowed to the sound of her heartbeat, his breathing, Marco's countdown. 5, 4, 3. Alara closed her eyes. 2. Felt Lucien's arms solid and sure around her. 1. A click, then silence. Then, clear. Marco's shout was pure triumph. Primary detonator disabled. Lucien didn't wait for confirmation. He swept Alara up and carried her through the door, across the threshold that should have killed them, into the night where his people held back Moretti's forces. An SUV waited, engine running. He placed her in the back seat with gentle hands that trembled slightly. Get her to the estate, he told Jensen, who looked worse for wear but alive. Maximum security. No one gets within 100 yards. Wait! Alara grabbed his jacket. Where are you going? His eyes met hers, and she saw the rage burning behind the control. To end this, Antonio Moretti just declared war. I'm going to show him why that was a mistake. Lucien, don't, but he was already gone, disappearing into the chaos with Marco at his side. The SUV pulled away, carrying Alara back to her cage while Lucien hunted the man who'd tried to kill them both. She watched the warehouse recede through the rear window, watched the muzzle flashes and running figures, watched the world Lucien lived in play out in violence and vengeance, and she realized with crystal clarity that she didn't just understand him anymore, she was starting to become him. The estate was on full lockdown when they arrived. Armed guards at every entrance, lights blazing from every window, the mansion transformed into a military installation. Jensen hustled Alara through a side door, through corridors emptied of staff, straight to her wing, where Mrs. Chen waited with a medical kit and worry etched deep in her face. Thank the heavens, the older woman breathed, her hands fluttering over Alara like she needed physical proof she was whole. When we heard what happened, sit, let me check those wrists. The rope burns were angry and red, already starting to bruise. Mrs. Chen cleaned them with gentle efficiency, while Alara sat numbly, her mind still trapped in that warehouse, in those final seconds before Marco's triumphant shout. In the moment, Lucien had held her like she mattered more than his next breath. Mrs. Chen, Alara said quietly, how long has Lucien been at war with the Morettis? The older woman's hands stilled. That's not my place to discuss. Please, I need to understand what I've walked into, what tonight was really about. Mrs. Chen sighed, setting down the antiseptic. 5 years. That's how long the peace lasted. Before that, it was open warfare. Bodies in the streets, businesses burned, families destroyed. The city was drowning in blood until Lucien and Antonio's father brokered a truce. She wrapped gauze around Alara's wrists with practiced care. But old Antonio died 2 years ago. Young Antonio inherited his empire and none of his wisdom. He's been pushing boundaries ever since, testing to see if Lucien would hold the line. And tonight he got his answer. Tonight he declared war, and Lucien Verres doesn't lose wars. The certainty in her voice should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified Alara, because wars required casualties, and she was tired of being collateral damage. Hours crawled past. 3 a.m. became 4, 4 became 5. Dawn crept across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. Alara stood at her window, watching the gates, waiting for headlights that didn't come. At 6:15, her door opened. She spun, hope and fear warring in her chest. But it was only Vincent. His usually immaculate suit was rumpled, his expression grave. Mrs. Verres, Mr. Verres asked me to update you. Is he alive? The question burst out before she could stop it. Yes. Injured, but alive. He's at one of our secure medical facilities being treated. The relief was so intense it made her dizzy. What happened? The confrontation with Antonio Moretti became complicated. I'm not at liberty to discuss details, but Mr. Veresi wanted you to know he's safe and will return as soon as he's able. How injured? Vincent's pause told her everything. Stable. The doctors are confident he'll make a full recovery. Which meant bad enough that he couldn't come home. Bad enough that he needed doctors, plural. Bad enough that Vincent was choosing his words with the care of someone delivering news that could shatter. I want to see him. That's not possible. The facility location is classified for security purposes. Vincent? Alara moved closer, letting him see the steel that had been forged in her over these brutal weeks. He risked his life to save me tonight. The least you can do is tell me where he is so I can return the favor. Mrs. Verese, please. The word came out softer, more vulnerable than she intended. Please, I need to see him. Something in Vincent's expression shifted. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded once. I'll have a car ready in 20 minutes, but this stays between us. Mr. Verese specifically ordered you kept at the estate. Then it's a good thing I'm terrible at following orders. The medical facility was hidden in plain sight, a private clinic in the financial district that catered to people who required both excellent care and absolute discretion. The kind of place that didn't ask questions about gunshot wounds or knife injuries. The kind of place men like Lucien needed on retainer. Vincent led her through a pristine lobby to an elevator that required a keycard and biometric scan. They descended 2 floors below ground level, emerging into a corridor that smelled of antiseptic and secrets. Marco met them outside a door marked only with the number 7. His left arm was in a sling, and a butterfly bandage held together a cut above his eyebrow, but he was alive and mobile. She shouldn't be here, he said to Vincent. Try stopping her, Vincent replied. Marco's eyes found Alara's, and something like respect flickered in their depths. 5 minutes. He needs rest. The room beyond was small and clinical. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking vitals. An IV dripped clear fluid into Lucian's arm. He lay propped against pillows, his chest wrapped in bandages, his face pale beneath the fluorescent lights. But his eyes were open, alert. I told Vincent to keep you at the estate, he said, his voice rough but strong. And I told Vincent I don't take orders well. Alara moved to his bedside, her hand finding his before she could think better of it. What happened? Moretti was waiting across the street like he promised. When the warehouse didn't explode, he opened fire on my people. Lucian's fingers tightened around hers. We returned fire. Things escalated. That's the diplomatic version. What's the truth? His lips quirked despite the obvious pain. The truth is that Antonio Moretti learned tonight why you don't back a predator into a corner, especially when that predator is protecting something he values. Did you kill him? No, but I wanted to. The admission came with a darkness that should have frightened her. Marco stopped me. Reminded me that dead men can't be interrogated, can't be used. Used for what? To send a message to every other family thinking about testing me, to show them what happens when you threaten what's mine. His free hand reached up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. You saved my life tonight. That text, if you hadn't warned me, you saved mine first, in the warehouse. That's different. How? Because saving you is my job. My responsibility. But you... He stopped, something vulnerable flickering across his face. You could have stayed silent. Let me walk into that trap. Freed yourself from this marriage, this life. But you didn't. Of course I didn't. The words came out sharper than intended. Did you really think I'd let you die? I didn't know what to think. You've made it very clear how you feel about this arrangement. Feelings change. Alara sat on the edge of the bed, still holding his hand. People change. I've learned things about survival, about strength, about what it means to fight for something beyond yourself. She met his eyes. You taught me that. Lucien stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time, really seeing her, beyond the acquisition, beyond the transaction. Alara. The door burst open. Marco appeared, his expression grim. We have a problem. Lucien's entire demeanor shifted, the vulnerability vanishing behind cold command. What kind of problem? Antonio Moretti escaped custody 20 minutes ago, killed 2 guards, took their weapons, disappeared into the city. Marco's jaw tightened. He knows we have his nephew. He knows where you are. And he just sent a message to every news outlet in the state. What message? Marco pulled out his phone, pulled up a video, pressed play. Antonio Moretti's face filled the screen, bloodied but triumphant, his eyes burning with rage and madness. Lucien Verres thinks he's untouchable, Antonio's voice rang out. Thinks he can control this city, control us all, with fear and violence, but I found his weakness, his wife, his precious Alara. The camera panned, showing what looked like the estate's exterior wall. She's not as safe as he thinks. None of them are. I'm coming for everything he loves, and I won't stop until Verres is broken and buried. The video ended. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. He's insane, Alara whispered. He's going to attack the estate. He already tried. Lucien swung his legs off the bed, ignoring Marco's protests. This video was filmed hours ago, before he escaped. He's been planning this. Boss, you need to stay here. Let the doctors can wait. My wife can't. Lucien stood, swaying slightly, his hand pressed to his bandaged ribs. Get me clothes, get me weapons, and get every available man to the estate now. You're in no condition to fight, Alara said, even as she helped steady him. You can barely stand. Then I'll fight sitting down. His eyes met hers, fierce and uncompromising. He threatened you, made it personal. That ends tonight. Lucien, please, no. The word was final. You asked me to include you, to teach you this world. This is the lesson, Alara. In my world, you protect what's yours with everything you have, even if it kills you. Especially if it kills you, Marco added grimly. I'll make the calls. Vincent appeared with clothes, dark tactical gear, not the designer suits Lucien usually wore. He dressed with mechanical efficiency, his face going gray with pain, but his movements never faltering. Alara watched him transform from injured man to warlord, watched the vulnerability he'd shown her vanish behind armor, both literal and metaphorical. You're staying here, Lucien said as he checked his weapon. This facility has its own security. You'll be safe. I'm not staying here while you walk into a battle you might not survive. Alara, no, you don't get to make this decision for me. She stepped into his space, forcing him to meet her eyes. If Antonio wants war, fine, but I'm not hiding while you fight it. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Then shoot me, because that's the only way you're keeping me here. She crossed her arms. I'm done being protected, done being locked away. You said I'm yours to protect. Well, you're mine too, and I protect what's mine. The echo of his own words hung between them. Marco coughed, hiding what might have been a laugh. Lucien stared at her for a long moment, war playing out across his face. Then, impossibly, he smiled, small and genuine and devastating. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. I learned from the best. Marco, get her a vest, and if anything happens to her, I'm holding you personally responsible. Understood, boss. The drive back to the estate was tense and silent. 3 SUVs, armed guards in each, moving through dawn-lit streets like a military convoy. Alara sat beside Lucien, the bulletproof vest heavy and foreign against her chest, watching the city wake up around them. Normal people going to normal jobs, living normal lives, completely unaware that a war was brewing in their midst. What's the plan? She asked quietly. Moretti will hit us before noon. He's not strategic. He's emotional, angry. That makes him dangerous but predictable. Lucien's hand found hers, lacing their fingers together. We've reinforced all entry points. Guards on rotation every hour, sharpshooters on the roof. He'd need an army to breach the estate. And if he brings one, then we remind him why the Verres family has controlled this city for 3 generations. His grip tightened. Stay with Marco. He'll keep you in the safe room until this is over. And where will you be? Wherever the fighting is thickest. He said it like it was obvious, like suicide missions were just another Tuesday. They pulled through the estate gates, and Alara's breath caught. The mansion had been transformed overnight into a fortress. Concrete barriers. Armed personnel. Vehicles positioned for rapid response. It looked like a war zone. Because it was. Inside, controlled chaos reigned. Men and women moved with purpose, checking weapons, coordinating positions, preparing for siege. Mrs. Chen appeared and tried to pull Alara toward safety, but Alara shook her off. I'm staying with Lucien. Mrs. Verese, please, I am staying. Lucien didn't argue, didn't send her away, just kept her close as he moved through the mansion, checking defenses, issuing orders, preparing his people for what was coming. At 10:15, the front gate sensors triggered. Single vehicle, Marco reported from the security room. Black sedan, one occupant. Moretti? Lucien moved to the monitors. Can't get a clear visual. They're staying in the car. Alara watched the screen, her heart hammering. The sedan sat just outside the gate, engine running, windows tinted dark. Then the driver's door opened. But it wasn't Antonio who emerged. It was a man Alara had never seen before. Younger than Antonio, maybe early 30s, with the same dark hair and sharp features. He moved with casual confidence, hands visible and empty, stopping 10 feet from the gate. "Who is that?" Alara whispered. Lucien's face had gone absolutely white. "That's impossible." "Boss?" "That's Darius Varese." The name came out strangled. "My brother." The room went silent. Alara stared at the screen, then at Lucien. "You have a brother?" "Had. He's supposed to be dead. He died 8 years ago in Prague." Lucien's hands clenched into fists. "This is a trick. A double. Moretti's playing games." "Or he's alive," Marco said carefully. "And he's working with Moretti." On screen, Darius Varese smiled up at the camera. Then he held up a phone, tapped something, and Lucien's cell rang. Lucien answered, putting it on speaker. "Hello, brother." The voice was smooth, cultured, laced with amusement. "Surprised to see me. You're dead. Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, though I appreciate you not looking too hard for a body." Darius's smile widened. 8 years. That's how long I've been planning this moment. How long I've been building alliances, gathering resources, waiting for the perfect opportunity to come home. This isn't your home anymore. No? I think you'll find I have as much claim to the Varese Empire as you do. More, actually, since I'm the elder son. Darius's eyes seemed to look directly at them through the camera. But I'm not here to debate inheritance. I'm here to deliver a message from my associate, Antonio Moretti. Your associate. Lucien's voice dripped contempt. You allied with the Morettis, betrayed your own family. You mean the family that left me for dead in Prague? That didn't send reinforcements when I was ambushed? That held a funeral and moved on like I never existed? Darius's pleasant tone never wavered. I found new family. Family that values loyalty. Family that wants to see the great Lucien Varese brought down to where he belongs. Alara watched Lucien's face, saw the cracks forming in his control. This wasn't just an enemy. This was personal. This was betrayal wrapped in blood and history. What do you want, Darius? Antonio wants you to know he's coming, today, with everything he has. But me? Darius leaned closer to his camera, his smile turning cruel. I wanted you to know that all your precious security, all your careful planning, all your power, none of it matters, because I know every weakness in your defenses, every blind spot, every secret entrance. I changed the protocols after you died. But did you change the tunnel system? The one our father had built in the 60s? The one that connects to 3 different locations in the city? Darius's laugh was cold. No, I didn't think so. See you soon, little brother. Oh, and Lucien, that pretty wife of yours, Alara, isn't it? She's absolutely lovely. I can't wait to meet her properly. The call disconnected. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then Lucien exploded into action. The tunnels. Marco, get teams to every access point now. Seal them, barricade them. I don't care how... Boss, we don't have enough men to cover all the tunnels and maintain perimeter security. Then pull from the perimeter. If Darius knows about the tunnels, that's where he'll strike. Lucien spun to Alara. You, safe room, now. Lucien, this isn't negotiable. His voice cracked with something close to fear. Darius doesn't make idle threats. If he's coming prepared. And he just told us exactly what he's targeting. What's he targeting? Lucien's eyes met hers, and she saw the answer there. You. He's targeting you to get to me. The realization hit like ice water. This whole time she'd been worried about Antonio Moretti, but the real threat was someone far more dangerous, someone who knew Lucien intimately, who knew exactly how to hurt him, someone who'd seen that Alara mattered. Then we use that, Alara said, her mind racing. We know he's coming for me, so we set a trap. Absolutely not. Listen to me. She grabbed his arms, forcing him to focus. Your brother wants to prove you're vulnerable because of me. That having someone to lose makes you weak. So let's prove him wrong. Let's show him that I'm not a weakness. I'm a weapon. You're not bait. I'm not bait. I'm the only advantage we have. She looked to Marco. The tunnels all converge somewhere, right? A central hub? Marco nodded slowly. The old wine cellar. It's been sealed for years, but if Darius knows the original blueprints, then that's where he'll emerge, with Antonio's forces. Alara turned back to Lucian. Put me in that wine cellar. Let them think I'm vulnerable, and when they come for me, you destroy them. That's insane. That's strategic. She moved closer, her hands finding his face. You taught me to see people as assets or threats. Well, I'm your asset. Let me be useful. Lucian's jaw clenched, war raging behind his eyes. If anything goes wrong, then you'll be there, because you're always there. She smiled, small and fierce. Trust me, Lucian, like I trusted you in that warehouse. The silence stretched, then Lucian looked at Marco. Set it up, but I want sharpshooters on every angle, motion sensors, remote surveillance, and I want my best fighters with her. You'll have them, Marco said. And I'm going in the wine cellar too. Lucian's tone brooked no argument. She's not facing my brother alone. They had 90 minutes to prepare. The wine cellar was exactly what it sounded like, a vast underground chamber carved from bedrock, lined with empty racks that had once held vintages worth more than houses. 4 tunnel entrances opened into the space like wounds, dark and threatening. Marco's team worked with brutal efficiency, placing hidden cameras, positioning sharpshooters behind false walls, creating kill zones that would activate the moment hostiles emerged. Alara watched it all, the bulletproof vest heavy against her chest, a small pistol Marco had given her tucked into her waistband. Point and shoot, he'd said. Don't think, just survive. Lucian stood by the main entrance, arguing with Vincent about force distribution. Even injured, even facing his resurrected brother, he commanded absolute authority. Mrs. Chen appeared one last time, pressing something into Alara's hand, a small silver locket. It was your mother's, the older woman said softly. Your father sent it last week, before everything happened. He wanted you to have it. Alara opened the locket. Inside were 2 photos, one of her mother, young and smiling, one of Alara as a child, gap-toothed and fearless. The girl she used to be, staring at the woman she'd become. Thank you, Alara whispered. Come back alive, child. For all of us. Then it was just Alara, Lucian, and 4 of Marco's best fighters. Torres among them, recovered from the dart attack and looking eager for vengeance. They took positions in the shadows, weapons ready, waiting. 11:53, the motion sensors on the north tunnel activated. 11:57, voices in the darkness, growing closer. 12:03. The first figure emerged from the tunnel, not Darius, not Antonio, just soldiers, men with guns and body armor, spreading out with military precision. 6, 8, 12. Then Darius stepped into the light. He looked like Lucien, same height, same build, same sharp features. But where Lucien's eyes held ice, Darius's held fire. Madness and intelligence in equal measure. Well, well, his voice echoed through the chamber. This is almost too easy. The great Lucien Varese, hiding in his wine cellar with his pretty wife. How domestic. Lucien stepped out of the shadows, weapon raised. You should have stayed dead, Darius. And miss this? Miss watching you finally care about something? About someone? Darius's eyes found Alara, and his smile widened. Hello, sister-in-law. I've heard so much about you. The girl who tamed the monster. The debt payment who became a queen. I'm no one's payment, Alara said, stepping forward despite Lucian's warning hand, and I'm definitely not his weakness. No? Darius tilted his head. Then let's test that theory. He snapped his fingers. From the southern tunnel, more men emerged. But these ones were dragging someone, a woman, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Maria Delgado, the sister they'd been trying to save. Antonio sends his regards, Darius said, and a proposal. You let us leave with Mrs. Varese, and the girl lives. You try to stop us, and they both die. You're bluffing, Lucian said. Am I? Darius pulled a detonator from his pocket. See, while you were so focused on protecting your wife, we were planting charges throughout your precious estate. One press of this button, and everything you've built turns to rubble. Your people, your home, your empire, gone. Alara's blood turned to ice. This wasn't just an attack, it was annihilation. So here's how this works, Darius continued, his voice pleasant and poisonous. You lower your weapons. My men take your wife. And maybe, I let you live long enough to watch your world burn. Or, Lucian said, his voice deadly calm, we kill you now and disarm the charges ourselves. You could try, but can you do it before I press this button? Before my men kill the girl? Darius's smile never wavered. Face it, brother, you've finally met a problem you can't shoot your way out of, all because you made the mistake of caring. Elara watched Lucien's face, saw the calculation happening behind his eyes, saw him weighing options, probabilities, acceptable losses, saw him looking at her like she was the only equation that mattered. And she realized something that should have terrified her but instead felt like clarity. She loved him. Somewhere between the forced marriage and the cold commands and the moment he'd held her in that warehouse, she'd fallen in love with Lucien Verres, which meant she knew exactly what to do. Lucien, she said softly, it's okay. Elara, no, it's okay. She moved toward Darius, her hands raised. I'll go. Just let the girl go. Let everyone go. Elara, Lucien's voice cracked. She turned back to him, drinking in his face one last time. You taught me to survive. Now let me prove I learned. Then she walked into Darius Verres's waiting hands and watched her husband's world shatter behind his eyes. Darius's hand closed around Elara's arm like a vice, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. But she didn't fight, didn't struggle, just kept her eyes locked on Lucien's face, watching the calculation there shift into something she'd never seen before. Raw, desperate fear. Smart girl, Darius murmured against her ear. You understand the game better than my brother does. He's too used to winning. Let Maria go, Elara said, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. That was the deal. Darius laughed, the sound echoing through the wine cellar like breaking glass. The deal was, I might let her live. I never said anything about letting her go. He gestured to his men. Take them both. Antonio wants insurance, and 2 hostages are better than 1. No! The shout came from behind Lucian, Torres breaking formation, his weapon trained on Darius. You said... The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Torres dropped, blood blooming across his chest. One of Darius's men lowered his smoking weapon with professional calm. Anyone else want to be a hero? Darius's voice remained pleasant, conversational. No? Good. Then here's what happens next. My men and I walk out of here with these 2 lovely ladies. You stay here and contemplate your failures. And in exactly, he checked his watch. 12 minutes, I detonate the charges and erase the Verres name from this city forever. You'll kill yourself too, Marco said from the shadows. The blast radius includes the cellar, I know. Darius smiled. That's what makes it fun. Will Lucian sacrifice himself trying to save his wife? Or will he run and prove he's exactly as selfish as I always knew he was? Lucian's weapon remained trained on his brother, his finger on the trigger, his entire body coiled with violence barely contained. But Elara saw the war in his eyes, saw him calculating angles, trajectories, probabilities, saw him coming up empty. Tick-tock, brother, Darius said. Make your choice. Then Elara felt it. The small pistol Marco had given her, still tucked in her waistband, hidden by the bulletproof vest. Darius's men had been sloppy, more focused on the threat from Lucien's people than from her. Their mistake. She met Lucien's eyes across the cellar, saw him see her plan in real time, saw him give the smallest shake of his head, a silent plea for her not to risk it. But risk was all they had left. Elara drove her elbow back into Darius's ribs, using every ounce of strength she possessed. His grip loosened just enough for her to twist away, her hand finding the pistol, bringing it up. The world exploded into chaos. Lucien's sharpshooters opened fire from their hidden positions. Darius's men returned fire, the wine cellar transforming into a war zone of muzzle flashes and ricochets. Maria screamed through her gag. Someone was shouting orders in a language Elara didn't recognize. And Darius was laughing. There it is, he crowed, diving behind a wine rack as bullets chewed through wood. There's the Verres fire. I was wondering when you'd remember how to fight. Elara scrambled for cover behind a stone pillar, her heart threatening to explode from her chest. Across the cellar, she saw Lucian moving with lethal precision, his weapon finding targets with the ease of long practice. He was injured, bleeding through his bandages, but he moved like death itself, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. One of Darius's men went down, then another. Marco's team was decimating them with surgical efficiency, but Darius himself remained untouched, protected by his position and the detonator in his hand. 10 minutes, he called out cheerfully. Better work fast, Lucien, though I have to say watching you choose between your wife and your empire is absolutely delicious. A hand grabbed Alara's shoulder and she spun, pistol raised, but it was one of Marco's men, the one called Jensen. Mrs. Verez, we need to move you. An explosion rocked the cellar, not the estate charges, something smaller. A grenade. One of the wine racks collapsed, sending century-old bottles crashing to the floor, red wine spreading like blood across the stone. Through the chaos and smoke, Alara saw Maria. The girl was still bound, still terrified, abandoned by her captors in the firefight. She was trying to crawl towards safety, but she was heading straight for the crossfire. Cover me! Alara didn't wait for Jensen's response. She broke from cover, sprinting across the open space toward Maria. Bullets whined past her head. Something tugged at her vest, a hit that would have killed her without Marco's insistence on body armor. She reached Maria, cut her bonds with trembling fingers, pulled the gag free. Can you run? Maria nodded, tears streaming down her face. Then run! That tunnel! Alara pointed to the eastern exit. Go! Don't stop! What about you? Go! Maria ran. Alara turned to follow, but Darius was suddenly there, emerging from the smoke like a demon, his weapon pressed to her temple. He crooned. We're not done yet. Everything stopped. Lucien froze mid-shot. Marco's men held their fire. The cellar fell into terrible silence, broken only by dripping wine and ragged breathing. There we go, Darius said. Much better. Now, here's what's going to happen. Everyone puts down their weapons, nice and slow, or I paint the walls with your wife's brain. Darius, Lucien's voice was eerily calm. Let her go. This is between us. It's always been between us. Oh, now you want to make it personal. After 8 years of pretending I never existed? Darius's laugh was bitter. You know what the worst part was, Lucien? It wasn't being left behind in Prague. It wasn't the ambush or the torture or fighting my way out of a country that wanted me dead. It was coming home, broken, scarred, barely alive, and finding out you hadn't even looked for me. You'd moved on, taken over the empire like I was just an inconvenient footnote. I mourned you. You replaced me. The gun pressed harder against Alara's head, and she forced herself to breathe through the terror. You became everything Father wanted, everything I was supposed to be, and for what? Money? Power? Control over people who'd sell you out in a heartbeat? Not everyone, Lucien said quietly. His eyes found Alara's. Not her. Something flickered across Darius's face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Is that right? He studied Alara's face. Tell me, sister-in-law, do you love him, the man who bought you like property, who forced you into this life? Alara's mind raced. The truth could be a weapon or a weakness, depending on how Darius chose to use it, but she was done with lies. Yes, she said clearly. I love him. She felt Lucien's shock from across the cellar, even if she couldn't see his face. Fascinating. Darius's tone shifted, became almost curious. And you, brother? Do you love her back? Or is she really just the acquisition you claimed? The silence that followed was deafening. Then Lucien lowered his weapon. Completely. Dropped it to the floor with a clatter that echoed through the cellar. I love her, he said. More than the empire. More than revenge. More than my own life. His hands rose, showing empty palms. So here's my offer, Darius. Take me. Kill me if that's what you need. But let her walk away. Please. The word, please, seemed to physically pain him. Darius stared at his brother like he was seeing a stranger. You're serious? Completely. The great Lucien Verez, begging, surrendering. Darius's grip on Alara loosened slightly. Father would be ashamed. Father was a monster who taught us that love was weakness and loyalty was bought with fear. He was wrong about everything that mattered. Lucien took a step forward, hands still raised. I was wrong too. About you. About what happened in Prague. I should have looked for you, should have torn that city apart until I found you. I'm sorry, Darius, I'm so sorry. The apology hung in the air between them, years of pain and betrayal compressed into 3 words. Alara felt Darius's hand trembling against her head, felt the gun waver. It's too late for sorry, he said, but his voice cracked. I've made my choices. Allied with Moretti, planted the charges. There's no coming back from this. There's always a way back, Lucian said, if you want it. And if I don't? Then pull the trigger, kill her, kill me. Burn it all down, but know that it won't change anything. Won't bring back the brother you were. Won't erase the 8 years. Lucian's voice softened. It'll just make you exactly like father. And I know that's not who you wanted to become. The gun against Alara's head began to lower. Then Antonio Moretti's voice crackled through a radio on one of the dead soldiers. Darius, status report. Did you secure the targets? Reality crashed back. Darius's expression hardened, the moment of vulnerability slamming shut. Antonio's waiting, he said, and unlike you, he doesn't forgive betrayal. The gun came back up. I'm sorry, Alara. You seem nice, but you married the wrong brother. The gunshot was impossibly loud, but it didn't come from Darius's weapon. It came from Maria Delgado, standing in the eastern tunnel entrance with a fallen guard's rifle, her hand shaking, but her aim true. The bullet caught Darius in the shoulder, spinning him around. His gun clattered to the floor. The detonator flew from his hand, skittering across the wine-stained stone. Everything happened at once. Lucian dove for the detonator. Marco's men swarmed Darius. Alara grabbed the fallen gun, training it on the tunnel entrances where more of Moretti's forces might emerge. But the tunnels stayed empty, silent. Boss! Marco appeared at Lucian's side, tablet in hand. The charges were picking up 6 devices scattered throughout the estate. If they detonate, can you disarm them? Not in 12 minutes, not all of them. Marco's face was grim. We need to evacuate. Get everyone out before No. Lucian stood, the detonator gripped in his hand. We don't run, not from this. He turned to Darius, who was being restrained by 3 of Marco's largest men. Where's Moretti? Where is he watching from? Darius laughed, blood seeping through his shirt. You think I'd tell you? I think you're smarter than you're pretending to be. This was never about the charges. If Moretti wanted the estate destroyed, he'd have detonated remotely already. Lucien moved closer to his brother. This is about humiliation, about watching me choose. He's nearby, isn't he? Close enough to see the show. Something in Darius's expression confirmed it. Marco, pull up the perimeter cameras. Focus on elevated positions within visual range of the estate. Marco worked the tablet with flying fingers. Got 3 possibles. The office building east side, the parking structure north. And he zoomed in on a feed. The old church bell tower. I'm seeing movement. That's him. Lucien studied the screen, his jaw tight. Classical position. Good sight lines. Symbolic. He looked at Darius. Your associate has a flair for drama. He has a flair for results, which is more than I can say for the Varese family. Darius's smile was bloody. You can disarm the charges, save your precious estate, but Moretti won't stop. He has resources, allies, patience. He'll bleed you dry slowly, and you'll never see him coming. Then I'll make sure he sees me coming. Lucien turned to Marco. Get the bomb squad here. Disarm what you can, evacuate what you can't, get everyone to minimum safe distance. What are you going to do? End this. He looked at Alara. All of it. The church bell tower was 3 blocks from the estate, abandoned for years after the parish relocated. Its stone walls were tagged with graffiti, its windows broken. But from the top you could see everything. The mansion, the grounds, the wine cellar entrance. Perfect overwatch for someone who wanted to watch his enemy burn. Lucien approached alone, his weapon holstered, his hands visible. Alara had wanted to come, but he'd been absolute in his refusal. Some things he needed to face without risking her. The tower door was unlocked. Of course it was. Moretti was expecting him. Lucien climbed the spiral stairs, each step sending pain through his injured ribs. Blood seeped through the bandages Marco had rewrapped in the SUV. He was running on adrenaline and rage, and both were burning out fast. But he climbed. At the top, Antonio Moretti stood by the bell tower window, binoculars in hand, watching the chaos at the estate. He didn't turn when Lucien emerged. I was wondering when you'd figure it out, Antonio said. Though I expected you sooner. Getting slow in your old age, Varese? Getting careful. There's a difference. Lucien leaned against the stone wall, conserving strength. Your charges are being disarmed. Darius is in custody. Your men are dead or captured. It's over, Antonio. Is it? Moretti finally turned, and Lucien saw the madness burning in his eyes. Because from where I'm standing, I've already won. I've shown everyone that the untouchable Lucien Varese bleeds, that he can be hurt, that he has weakness. You've shown them I'm human. That's not the revelation you think it is. No? Antonio moved closer, his hand drifting toward the weapon at his hip. Your precious wife is human too, fragile, vulnerable. How long before someone else realizes they can hurt you through her? How long before you have to choose between her safety and your empire? As long as it takes. Lucian's hand moved to his own weapon. I'll choose her every time, and I'll destroy anyone who makes me make that choice. Sentimental fool. Antonio's gun cleared his holster, but Lucien was faster. 2 shots. Center mass. Antonio staggered back, his weapon clattering to the floor, his hand pressed to his chest where blood was already spreading. You, he gasped, you're supposed to negotiate. I don't negotiate with dead men. Lucien kept his weapon trained on him. You threatened my wife, tried to destroy my home, allied with my brother against me. Those aren't negotiating positions. Those are death sentences. Antonio slumped against the wall, sliding down slowly. Your father would be proud. My father was a monster. I'm trying to be better. Lucien lowered his weapon as Antonio's eyes glazed over. But for you, I made an exception. He turned and descended the tower stairs without looking back. By the time Lucien returned to the estate, Marco's bomb squad had disarmed 4 of the 6 charges. The remaining 2 were in areas that had been successfully evacuated. Controlled detonations would handle them safely. Darius was in the same interrogation room where they'd questioned the kitchen infiltrator, his shoulder bandaged, his hands cuffed, his expression unreadable. Lucien stood on the other side of the one-way glass, watching his brother. Alara appeared beside him, her hand finding his. Is Moretti dead? She nodded, unsurprised. And Darius? That's the question. Lucien laced his fingers through hers. He tried to kill us, destroy everything. By rights, he should die for that. But he's your brother. He was my brother. The man in there is a stranger who shares my blood. Lucien's jaw tightened. The smart move is elimination. Clean. Final. No loose ends. And the right move? He looked at her then, really looked, seeing the woman who'd saved his life twice in one night, who'd faced down his brother without flinching, who'd somehow found it in herself to love him despite everything he was. I don't know anymore, he admitted. I used to be so certain about these decisions, asset or threat, useful or expendable, but you've complicated everything. Good, Alara said softly. You needed complicating. Marco entered the observation room, tablet in hand. Boss, we've secured the estate. Casualties on our side. Torres didn't make it. 3 others wounded but stable. We recovered Maria Delgado. She's shaken but unharmed. And Darius is asking to speak with you. Alone? He specified with Mrs. Varese present. Lucien and Alara exchanged glances. Then, together, they entered the interrogation room. Darius looked up as they entered, and for a moment, Alara saw the resemblance clearly. Same dark eyes, same sharp features. But where Lucien had learned to bury his emotions behind ice, Darius wore his like armor. You came, Darius said. I wasn't sure you would. You asked. Lucien sat across from him, Alara at his side. Make it worth my time. Always direct. Father trained you well. Darius shifted, wincing at the pain in his shoulder. I'm not going to apologize. I meant what I said in the cellar. You abandoned me, left me to rot. Whatever happened after that is on you. Acknowledged, Lucien said. What do you want, Darius? I want to tell you why I really came back, why I allied with Moretti. Darius met his brother's eyes. It wasn't about the Empire. It was never about the Empire. It was about making you feel what I felt. Loss, betrayal, the terror of having something precious ripped away. Mission accomplished. Is it? Because you're still here. She's still here. Your estate is still standing. I failed, Lucien, at everything, just like I always did. The bitterness in Darius's voice was caustic. You were always better, smarter, stronger, more ruthless. Father knew it. I knew it. That's why he sent you on the important missions and left me with the scraps. That's not... Lucian stopped. Started again. Prague was supposed to be my mission, but I was injured, so Father sent you instead. I begged him not to, told him the intelligence was unreliable. He didn't listen. Darius stared. You're lying. I have the communications, the arguments, everything. Lucian's voice went quiet. When you disappeared, when we got word you were dead, I tore that operation apart trying to understand what went wrong. Found out Father had ignored every warning, sent you into a trap because he wanted to teach you a lesson about being stronger. What lesson? That Verres men don't fail. If you'd succeeded against impossible odds, you'd have proven yourself. If you died, you were weak and deserved it. Lucien's hands clenched into fists. I hated him for it, hated myself for not stopping it. That's why I looked for you, Darius. For 6 months, I had teams searching every morgue, every hospital, every black site in Eastern Europe. When I finally accepted you were gone, it broke something in me. Tears tracked down Darius's face. You looked. Of course I looked. You were my brother. You still are underneath all this. Lucien leaned forward. I can't erase 8 years, can't undo the choices you made. But I can choose what happens next, and I'm choosing to give you an option. What option? Leave. Tonight. Take money, documents, everything you need to disappear. Go somewhere I'll never find you, and build a life that isn't about revenge. Lucian's voice hardened. But if you stay, if you ever threaten my family again, I will kill you, brother or not. Darius looked between Lucian and Alara, something like understanding dawning. She changed you, he said. The rumors were true. The untouchable Lucien Verres found someone to care about. She saved me, Lucian corrected. From becoming exactly like Father. Alara felt her throat tighten with emotion. To hear him say it, to acknowledge it, was more than she'd ever expected. Darius nodded slowly. I'll go. Leave the city. Maybe even the country. He met Lucien's eyes. But I need you to know, I'm sorry. For all of it. The alliance with Moretti, the attack, trying to hurt her to hurt you. I was so consumed by rage that I forgot what it meant to be family. Family is a choice, Lucian said. You can choose differently now. And if I can't, if the rage is all I have left, then you'll die alone and angry, wondering what might have been. Lucian stood. The choice is yours, Darius. It's always been yours. They left him there, hands cuffed, face wet with tears, contemplating a future he'd never planned for. In the hallway, Alara stopped Lucian with a hand on his arm. That was mercy, she said, real mercy, despite everything he did. That was weakness, Lucian replied. By every rule I've ever lived by, I should have killed him. Then I'm grateful for your weakness. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with desperate strength. When I saw him with that gun to your head, when I thought I might lose you, his voice broke. I've faced death 100 times, never been afraid. But the thought of existing in a world without you in it. I'm here, she whispered against his chest. I'm right here. They stood that way for a long moment, two people who'd been forced together by circumstance and chosen each other anyway. Finally, Lucien pulled back, his hand cupping her face. You said you loved me. In the cellar. Did you mean it? Every word. Even knowing what I am, what I've done, what I'll have to keep doing to protect what's ours? Especially knowing that. Alara met his eyes. You're not a good man, Lucien Verres, but you're my man, and I love you despite your flaws, maybe even because of them. I don't deserve you. No, you don't, but you're stuck with me anyway. She smiled. 3 signatures, remember? I'm legally bound to you. Those signatures can be undone. If you wanted freedom, if you wanted a normal life, I'd give it to you, no conditions, no obligations. The offer hung between them, genuine and terrifying. Alara thought about the girl she'd been weeks ago, the one who'd wanted nothing more than a quiet life, a simple existence. That girl would have taken the out without hesitation. But that girl was dead, and the woman who'd risen from her ashes knew exactly what she wanted. I don't want normal, she said. I want you, this life, all of it. You understand what that means? You'll be a target, always. There will be others like Moretti, like Darius, people who will see you as my weakness. Then we'll prove them wrong together. She pulled him down into a kiss, their first real kiss, chosen and wanted by both of them. Besides, I'm not your weakness. I'm your strength. Get used to it. When they finally broke apart, Lucien was smiling, really smiling, warm and genuine and transformative. Yes, Mrs. Verres. The next weeks were a blur of reconstruction and reorganization. Darius left the city as promised, escorted to a private airfield by Marco personally. The last Ilara heard, he'd settled somewhere in South America, far from the life that had tried to destroy him. The estate was repaired, security doubled, protocols rewritten. Torres received a funeral with full honors, his family provided for. Maria Delgado was reunited with her brother, both of them relocated to a safe city with clean backgrounds and new identities. Antonio Moretti's death was ruled a gang execution, which wasn't entirely inaccurate. His organization fractured without him, the pieces absorbed by other families or dismantled by federal investigations that Lucien quietly encouraged. The city's underworld learned a simple lesson. Lucien Verres's family was untouchable. 3 months after the siege, Ilara stood in the conservatory watching Lucien work in the garden. He'd taken up gardening of all things, finding something meditative in nurturing life instead of taking it. "You know people are going to think you've gone soft," she called out. He looked up, dirt on his hands, a rare smile on his face. "Let them think what they want. I know the truth." "And what's that?" "That I'm the luckiest bastard alive." He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms despite his dirty hands. "I have everything I never knew I needed." Careful. That sounds dangerously close to happiness. Terrifying, isn't it? They'd found something neither had been looking for. Partnership. Understanding. Love that had been forged in fire and emerged stronger for it. Ilara's father called weekly now, sober, 6 weeks and counting, working with a therapist Lucien had quietly arranged. Their relationship was still fragile, still healing, but it was real. The Castillos had become unexpected allies, Elena Castillo taking Ilara under her wing, teaching her the nuances of their world. Sofia Marchetti had even thawed slightly, offering grudging respect after Ilara had survived what she called the Moretti incident. Life wasn't perfect. Lucien still disappeared for days handling business Ilara didn't ask about. She still woke up sometimes feeling trapped, feeling like the cage walls were closing in. But then he'd come home, or she'd find ways to carve out her own space in this world, and the walls would recede. They were learning, both of them, how to be married, how to be partners, how to build something real from the ashes of a transaction. 6 months after the wedding, they renewed their vows. Real ones this time, spoken in the estate's garden with only Mrs. Chen, Marco, and a handful of trusted friends present. No business associates, no performance. Just 2 people choosing each other with full knowledge of who they were and what they'd become together. "I, Lucien, take you, Ilara, to be my partner in every way that matters," Lucien said, his voice steady and sure. "Not because of debts or obligations, but because you're the only person who's ever made me want to be better than what I was raised to be." "I, Ilara, take you, Lucien, to be my companion through whatever comes," Ilara replied, tears streaming down her face. "Not because I was forced to, but because somewhere between the fear and the anger, I found someone worth fighting for, worth fighting with." They exchanged new rings, simple bands engraved with the date they'd chosen each other, not the date they'd been forced together. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Lucien kissed her like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. That night, lying in bed in what had become their shared room, Ilara had moved her things to his wing months ago. She traced the scars on his chest while he played with her hair. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "That night with my father? If you could go back, would you do it differently?" Lucien was quiet for a long moment, considering. "I regret how it started. The fear in your eyes, the way you were given no choice." His fingers tightened in her hair. "But I can't regret where it led us. Can't regret finding you, even if the circumstances were brutal. That's not really an answer. It's the only honest one I have." He shifted to look at her. "I was a monster, Ilara. Maybe I still am. But you looked at the monster and saw something worth saving. That changed everything. You're not a monster. You're just a man trying to survive in a world that rewards monstrosity." "See? That's what I mean. You give me too much credit." And you don't give yourself enough. She kissed him softly. We balance each other. That's how this works. How what works? Love, marriage, partnership, us. She settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. We make each other better. Isn't that what matters? When did you get so wise? When I married a man who taught me that survival isn't enough. You have to fight for what comes after. They lay in comfortable silence, two people who'd been strangers finding home in each other. Outside, the estate settled into its nightly rhythms. Guards changed shifts, security systems armed, the fortress preparing for whatever threats tomorrow might bring. But inside in their room, Alara and Lucien had found something fortress walls couldn't protect and violence couldn't destroy. They'd found each other, not despite the darkness, but because of it. And in a world built on power and control, that was the most dangerous thing of all. 1 year after the wedding that had shattered and remade both their lives, Alara Quinvarez stood on the balcony of the estate watching the sun set over the city that had taken everything from her and given her everything back in ways she'd never imagined. Lucien appeared behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "The girl I used to be. How she'd react if she could see me now." And I think she'd be terrified, but also proud. Alara leaned back into his warmth. She survived. We both did. We did more than survive. His hand found hers, their wedding rings catching the dying light. We won. Did we? Or did we just learn to live with the consequences? Isn't that the same thing? Maybe it was. Maybe survival and victory were just different words for the same truth, that sometimes the life you're forced into becomes the life you choose, that love can grow in the darkest soil, that strength isn't about never being broken, but about how you rebuild yourself after. Alara had been bought, sold, traded like property, and she'd transformed herself into a queen, not because Lucien had made her one, but because she'd decided that if she was going to live in this world, she'd do it on her own terms, with her own power, her own strength. The contract that had started this had been about debt, about obligation, about one man's desperation and another man's convenience. But what they'd built from those cold foundations was something neither of them had anticipated: a partnership, a marriage, a love that was dangerous and beautiful and entirely their own. "I love you," Lucien said quietly. "I know I don't say it enough, but I do. More than anything. I know." Alara turned in his arms, her hands finding his face. "I love you too, even when you're impossible, even when you're terrifying, even when you make choices I don't understand. Especially then? Especially then." They kissed as the sun set over their empire, two people who'd been strangers finding forever in each other's arms. The price of survival had been steep, but what they'd paid for with blood and fear and desperate choices had proven worth every cost. They had each other. They had truth. They had love that had been tested by fire and emerged unbreakable. And in the end, that was the only transaction that mattered. 3 signatures had sealed their fate. But every day after, every choice they made together, every moment they chose each other over everything else, those were the signatures that mattered. Those were the ones that made them real.